Hello and welcome to Beacon's live broadcast of our Nashville Mayoral Election results. I'm Taylor Dawson. I'm joined by Mark Cunningham. We are the communications staffers here at the Beacon Center, and we're really excited to be here with you tonight to report on live election results.
Yep, and this is kind of our donor type feed. This is what we're our followers, supporters are going to watch it on YouTube. We're actually going to go live on Facebook in a second here. But for now, we just want to say hi to you first.
We're getting our microphones clipped on. We're getting ready to roll.
And we have a lot of exclusive content. We have a lot of great stuff, exit polls that are about to come up. So actually, I think we're good, Baze. If you want to go live on Facebook, too, we're going to say hi there.
Your microphone is underneath your computer.
And what? Yeah.
It's right behind. Oh, gosh, it just fell.
Are we not using this?
Hey, Facebook, welcome. We are live. It is election night, and we are coming to you live from the Beacon office. My name is Taylor Dawson. I'm joined by Mark Cunningham.
Yeah, this is great.
Our vice,
really last minute. Yeah, we just got we're getting ready.
We wanted to go ahead and get started. We're getting our microphones clipped on because, as you know, the polls don't close in Nashville for another 30 minutes.
Yep, but right. I still can't get this on.
But we are rolling here on Facebook and on YouTube with our live election night results. We're so thankful that you're joining us here. We've done a lot of exciting things in the last few weeks. We've got exit polling data that you're not going to believe.
Our first time we've ever done exit polling. We have some really, really interesting things to show you probably in about 2 minutes from now, and we're the only ones who did it this way. We have numbers that nobody else has, and the media will be releasing them probably in about 5 minutes too, our exit polling, but we're going to show you first. So do you want to introduce, before we go in, why we're doing this and the reason?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of background on Mark and me, both before we got involved in the think tank world. We both worked in straight up politics, like elections, campaigns. I worked for a political party. We've done it all, and for us, this is really interesting. You could say that we're nerdy. I don't know.
Nope, you could say you're nerdy.
I'm nerdy.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that.
This kind of stuff is really interesting for us. Not only do we enjoy watching elections, but at Beacon over the next year, we're going to be doing a big focus on local politics. Local elections and local politics are the things that really affect you, your property taxes, your property rights, things like that, other things that we will be revealing some data on tonight. This is the stuff that really affects you, and so even more so than the stuff that happens here in Nashville by the state lawmakers. And so,
and it's important. We don't endorse any candidates. We don't care. I mean, we do care who wins, but we don't endorse candidates. We are just here to give you information because these policies matter and these elections matter.
Absolutely.
No matter who you vote for, this is a place for us to tell our donors, the people who follow us, people who don't follow us, and who hate us. But we are here to tell you the election results. So, and on
not
top of the
just
election
results, but what that means for you. So we asked a lot of questions in our exit polling about which issues are people voting on, what issues are important to the electorate in Nashville. And as Justin, our CEO Justin, he says a lot that a lot of people around the state of Tennessee are content with, as he puts it, watching Rome burn from afar. And that's not ideal, because what happens in Nashville being the biggest city in Tennessee now, surpassing Memphis in the last couple of years, what happens here really does set the tone for what happens in the rest of the state. And so if this goes well, we hope to be able to do this in other places. But
there's a Memphis election in October that we hope to do. And I'm not being rude by looking at my phone, by the way. We're getting updates. We're looking at texts. We have a lot going on. So I mean, it's time. Without further ado, let's announce our first exit poll.
Let's roll. So one of the first questions that we asked in our exit polling is, what was the number one issue that people were considering when they voted? And the results came back really interesting. Mark, why don't you dig in?
Yeah. So why don't we do this? So the most important issue on how Nashvillians voted today, the number one thing was fiscal responsibility and taxes. So 24%, and if you see, we'll see the later polls, but people are not happy with the way our city's being run fiscally, and they're worried about taxes going higher. Again, this is a pretty liberal city. So the fact that this is the number one overall reason people voted, with almost a quarter of the people voting for that, is a really big deal. And you would assume that something like this is good for probably John Cooper, it's good for Carol Swain. Those are the two who are probably going to benefit the most from that. And you would assume it's probably the worst for Mayor Briley, who's the current head in charge. Basically, they're saying, we don't love our taxes, we don't love our fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, so and then the second one, the one that I honestly thought was going to come out in front was education. I was not expecting it to be second. I'm really glad that fiscal responsibility is first, because before anything else, I'm a fiscal conservative. But education came out in second, which I thought was pretty indicative of what's going on in Nashville right now.
And it's interesting. So we allowed people to name their own issues. We didn't give them choices. So they picked education. I mean, this will only equal about 70% because people picked other things that were less. But education is interesting because obviously we're very pro-school choice. But just because they picked education doesn't mean that. Some of that could mean they want more in their public schools. And my assumption is, and we'll see if that happens later, is that the Democrats, or not Democrats, I'm sorry, but the people who are a little bit more liberal might benefit from the education thing.
Absolutely.
Briley and maybe John Ray Clemens, because that means a lot of people, when they say education in this city, they mean more money in the public schools. Now, we didn't dig into that, but that is generally what that means.
One of the ones that I was really encouraged to see, and like Mark said, we left these questions completely open-ended. We did not give them options of what to choose, and people came up with on their own accountability. You know, I've lived in a lot of cities in my life, and accountability is not something that is huge in city governments a lot of times. And the fact that the voters want to see accountability in city government, I think, is very telling.
Yeah, accountability is a big one too. I mean, when you look at that, it makes you feel like the people are saying that don't feel like there's currently accountability.
Right.
So what that means is, again, probably
That's telling.
Probably not great for Mayor Briley.
I know.
Again, there's outsiders, and that could be left or right. So I mean, John Ray Clemens could benefit from that. Carol Swain might benefit from that. That could be anybody except for probably Briley who benefits from that.
Well,
one.
I don't know. I mean, it is recent that he has been in office.
Yeah.
It could be just people are tired of.
Yeah, it's not necessarily,
before.
and we don't see the next result yet. So this is just guesses based on what these look like to us.
The next thing that came in was transit, traffic, and transportation. That was something that was before I moved to Nashville and was driving around. There were a lot of yard signs everywhere, yes or no on the transit plan. They were everywhere, and so that's an issue that's not going to die down, especially if you are on the road at any point of the day during rush hour. Transit's something that's going to be brought up in any election.
Yeah, transit, traffic, transportation, all the big three T's. And again, that's something that you would assume Mayor Briley would probably benefit from. Those are mostly people who probably wanted the transit plan. Right. John Ray Clemens has talked a lot about transit too, so I would assume that would benefit him as well. And probably the other two not as much. And maybe that might hurt the most is Cooper, because he was against the transit plan and he hasn't really talked about it much. Right. So I'm guessing that's who that helps.
Managing growth. This one is really interesting to me. It is one of the ones Nashville's growing at 100 people a day, or it was at one rate.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a big role for the next mayor.
I will say, I did some exit polling as well with some of these other guys here who did a great job. But the managing growth answer to me seems like that's actually a really good thing for Mayor Briley. A lot of the people have said that he has managed growth well. Now, I mean, I think in our opinion that we don't necessarily want to manage growth. We just want things to grow and stop giving millions of dollars to corporations.
Right.
But this managing growth to me stands out exactly. I think this is probably going to be Mayor Briley like 70-80% when we dig into those numbers.
Absolutely. And then the last one, housing. Public housing has been something. I know that I've seen commercials with Mayor Briley doing ads on public housing. And this is going to be something that's talked about until people feel
accountability as well. I think the other four will all benefit the other two candidates, in Briley and John Ray Clemens, which if you look at the percentages, if you add those two to those four, it's about equal. So I mean, I don't know how much that tells us, other than this is going to be a close race, and it could end up being, I mean, we don't know what's happening. This could end up being a four-way race. I mean, we're focused on kind of the top. It seems like everyone's saying Briley won, and then who's going to be in the runoff, Cooper or Swain. But I mean, John Ray Clemens showed strong in a lot of these things, and we will see. I think it's going to be a very close race from 1 to 4.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on. You want to move on to our next exit poll?
I do. I would love to.
All right. So we asked the citizens of Nashville, do they or the voters, the people who came out to vote, do they identify as conservative, liberal, or moderate? This I thought was really interesting. I was not expecting moderate to surge. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that.
I think you have to remember, it's self-identified moderates. A lot of people who identify themselves as moderate are actually not, in one way or the other. And if you look at the next one, which we'll see Donald Trump's approval rating, you'll see a lot of the so-called moderates seem to tilt very left. Everyone likes to, well, go back. We're not there yet. But a lot of people like to identify as moderate. Why don't you make that bigger, too, so people can see. But a lot of people like to identify as moderate because it makes them feel good. It doesn't mean that's what they actually are. Now, people don't love identifying as liberal, and it is telling that almost a quarter of the people here identified as conservative. That's a big number because we didn't go to conservative precincts.
No,
we went to
we
precincts
didn't.
that reflected last year's election, and that was kind of the major thing. And then we did some early voting, which skewed very, very liberal.
Right.
So that, I think that's a telling number. If that holds moderate, you would expect that to be John Cooper. John Cooper is the
really
one.
would.
He's the one person who I think you could, and maybe Briley a little bit too, because you kind of have, most people think you have Swain on the far right, you have Clemens on the far left. So kind of people who are liberal but not as liberal as Clemens, they might consider Briley a moderate. And then people who are maybe center right, center left, I think Cooper is who they consider the moderate. So that will help, I think, Cooper and Briley.
And it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that turns out.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the next question that we asked, which Mark thought of this question, and I thought it was really indicative to what is going on. Did you vote for?
Well, let's go back to Trump. We skipped the Trump one.
Okay, we'll skip the Trump one.
Okay,
it's the next one.
Okay, sorry, we messed that up.
So what he was just talking about was people who went conservative, liberal, moderate didn't necessarily, I mean, you go back to this one and you've got conservative and liberal tied, moderate surging ahead, but the approval and disapproval rate of Trump is a much bigger disparity here.
Yeah, you might want to open that up a little bit so they can see.
Yeah.
But like, what's interesting is like, obviously Trump is not going to be well liked in Nashville, right? That's pretty obvious. It's a pretty liberal city.
Right.
But what this shows us is actually Trump is much less liked than he was when he ran for president. So in the city of Nashville, I wrote it down here somewhere. He got 34%, and Clinton got 60. So this number means that about 10%. He actually has 10% less of people that approve of him now than voted for him, 2 years ago. So again, this might be skewing a little bit more liberal than we would expect. And again, who's that good news for? It's good news for really anybody but Swain, honestly.
Honestly, that you're not wrong there.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a lot of these exit polling data also, we have things available on our Facebook page. These graphics themselves are available on our Facebook page.
And people saying this helpful. They love the survey.
People are
love
loving
feed.
it. It's also available on the front page of the Tennessean website. So if you go to
Nate Rao's done a great
Tennessean.com,
job with that, and we worked with him earlier. So I mean, he's done a great job covering it. But we want you to stay here. So
yes,
stay here while you look there.
Yes, exactly.
So that's Trump. So a lot of people disapprove. You figure that hurts Swain a lot. That could help any number of Clemens. You figure Clemens and Briley the most. Cooper probably doesn't hurt him too much.
Doesn't hurt him.
Cooper's because he really has tried to play that. Appeal to Republican voters, but also appeal to liberal voters. So it will be interesting.
It will be. So let's go back to, did you vote for Mayor Briley in 2018? I think this one's really interesting. So you've got 66% of the voters that we talked to. Did you vote for Mayor Briley in 2018? 34% said no.
Which, hypothetically, this would be an incredible number for Briley.
This is unbelievable. If he retains the base that he had in 2018, no runoff needed.
Hint. He doesn't. But what's interesting here is in the 2018 election, he got about 54%, and Swain came in second with 23. So 66% of these people who voted for Briley last time. That is a huge number. Because you have to remember, it wasn't just him and Swain. There's a lot of other candidates who got 5-6%.
Right.
You had Ralph Bristol. You had Harold Love.
Right.
You had a lot of other somewhat good candidates who had 5-6%. It wasn't just
it wasn't a runaway race.
Exactly.
The
So
two of them,
this number you would assume is great for Briley. If you say, okay, well, 2/3 of the people voted for you last time. I mean, how could you not win?
Yes.
The later numbers are going to surprise you based on this.
They really are. And one thing that I'll throw in here, I read on the Tennessean actually just the other day, that a sitting mayor has never lost a re-election bid in the history of Nashville Metro government. Okay? So I'm not saying anything there. This is not, I'm just throwing that out there that if he retains his base, then it rings true.
It should be over, yeah.
But
again, you have very quality candidates. I think all four of the candidates, I mean, people are going to disagree with them, but you have quality candidates. I mean, John Cooper's a very, very well-respected councilman. He's got a bunch of money that he put in himself. That's great. Carol Swain got 23% last time, and it was a really strong 23% of people who really liked her. She's a Vanderbilt professor. I mean, she has a good resume. And then John Ray Clemens is in the state legislature. And, I mean, he is very, very popular with the left. He's got the great Southern accent. He's charming. So, I mean, there is a lot going on here. And again, Nashville's a liberal city, so there's no reason John Ray Clemens can't compete. It's just an interesting thing where I feel like last time you kind of had really one well-known candidate in a short election cycle, and this year you have four pretty well-known candidates in a much longer election cycle.
Yeah, and one thing that just as a marketing person, and I know Mark is too, and we talk about marketing things all the time, but one thing from my marketing mind is you drive around Nashville, and I honestly have not seen more of any one candidate's signs. I mean, I assumed that I would see just a flood of Briley signs all over Nashville, but I'm seeing just as many Swain, Cooper, Clemens. I'm seeing just as many signs for all four of the four major candidates all over Nashville, which of course is not an indication of who's going to win an election. But
if it was, we'd have President Romney, right?
Right,
I saw so many signs of him.
Exactly. But it is telling about the grassroots support of these candidates. And turnout, I mean, what was turnout today? Like,
I think they said about 20% was the projection.
So you've got really low turnout, and so maybe yard signs are indicative.
Yeah, who knows if they actually vote.
This could be a really close race, if that is the case.
And again, remember, we hadn't talked about the actual specifics behind this, but it's one candidate doesn't get 50%, it goes to a runoff. So you need 50% plus one. So really, we're looking, and Briley got that last time with 54%. I don't want to give anything away, but it seems very, very unlikely he's going to get even close to 50% this time. So I think we're going to see a runoff. And that's in, do you know the date of that? October?
Oh, September the 12th is the runoff election. So if there is a runoff, it'll be September the 12th.
Perfect.
And we'll remind everyone of that before we go off broadcast.
Absolutely.
If it indeed is the case. But I think that's really interesting. I was going to say, do you want to make a bet whether there will be a runoff or not? But I don't know if I'm going to take that.
I mean, I'll bet my house will be a runoff. I'm not. There's nothing I'm not willing to bet. If anybody wants to bet my house, we have our four guys. Also, all four of them did an excellent job. We just doing a great job with exit polling, helping us, looking up numbers.
What you can't see is what Mark and I are looking at is two cameras and four guys that have made this happen. So we could not do it without them. You'll probably see them pop in and out throughout this broadcast because we're going to be on for a while until they call this thing. So you want to move on to talking about some policy issues?
Yeah, sure. So we have about 15 minutes till the polls close, and before we go into policy issues, let's talk generally about what these exit polls mean. We talked about them all specifically, and the biggest exit poll takeaway I have, and you can talk about this, is this one right here. I do think the Mayor Briley, did you vote for him last time? 66% is huge.
Well, why don't you explain why we did these exit polls? Kind of what does exit polling even mean? It's very unscientific, but it's still a really good indicator of what is going to happen.
Absolutely, yeah, and we would not feel super confident in our total numbers for sure, because I mean, we maybe did a couple hundred people when the 110,000 people voted. We tried to find good precincts, but it's hard to find the validity of exit polls. But these numbers are generally pretty good because we're not seeing who's who. We talk to people, and then we're going to see, based on what people told us about that, what they did later. And we have to wait till 7 o'clock to see those results.
Right, but we went out for early voting.
Exactly, we did early voting, then we did 4 key precincts that all these guys did out here, and they did, again, like I said, excellent job. So these are really important just to get a feel of, okay, so we see 66% of people voted for Briley. What will be interesting at 7 o'clock is seeing what percentage of those people voted for Briley this time.
Again.
Yeah, and those are the numbers that are most important. But from a just kind of an outsider's perspective, looking at these numbers, that's the biggest takeaway here. 66% of the people who voted last time voted for Briley, which is 12 points higher than what he got.
Exactly.
So that's great. So let's get into some policies, and these are policies that we really care about.
Yeah. So
and we didn't love one of the results. The other one we like. So it's
if anything shows you the legitimacy of what we're doing here is the fact that we're about to show you a result that we did not like.
We did not like at all, but we're telling you.
But we're going to tell you anyway because that's the game that we're playing here.
Absolutely.
So being a think tank, of course, we could not do what we do without including some policy results, some policy questions here. And so the two biggest things that we've been talking about as far as Nashville goes is corporate welfare and property rights, specifically property taxes. And so let's just dive right in with a property tax increase. If you remember, if you're in Nashville, you probably remember that there was a massive property rights increase put on the table just this year.
Property tax increase,
Yeah, property tax increase put on the table just this year.
And it failed by 1 vote.
So it was a close one, team. But we asked voters, would you ever support a property tax increase in Davidson County? We didn't ask them if they'd support it tomorrow. We didn't ask them if they'd support it next year. We said, would you ever?
Which matters because we want a good result. If we said right now, people are going to say no, they're going to say yes.
Not.
But we really want an honest answer if they would ever support a property tax.
Because that tells more about your principle and your ideology than the current news of the moment.
That's right. So why don't you expand that a little bit?
So, upsettingly, for me at least, 44% of those polled said that they would ever, in the future of their lives, support a property tax increase.
And it's important to remember that 44% is still less than half.
Totally.
So granted, 44% more people said they would support a property tax increase than not.
And I will say, during our exit polling, when we would ask that question, we got a lot of people saying, I mean, ever?
Yeah.
Maybe sometime. Yeah, okay, maybe. We also had a lot of unsures.
Which kind of goes to that thing. It's like, yeah, I might support one if it's like if we had a tornado and we had to rebuild
if there was a
things.
natural disaster of some kind.
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't read super far into this. Now, what's interesting is that Mayor Briley is the one who did not want the tax increase.
Right.
So looking at these numbers, it's like, okay, it's pretty split whether that. Now, granted, I think if you looked at some of the more conservative areas, again, we went to these kind of 70-30 Democratic areas. If you go to Hermitage, Donaldson, you're going to find probably a lot less appetite for a property tax. But I was still surprised that many people were willing to pay a property tax increase. I know I live in Nashville, and I am not. I am willing to put that on the record.
The two of us are not in favor of property tax increase,
That's right.
period.
But it's interesting, and you see people who are willing to do that, it's going to help the more liberal candidates, right? You figure John Ray Clemens, and even though Briley was against it, I think a lot of his policies would support that, and he's running for election. So now maybe that if he were to win this election today or in September, that might be on the table. But it's interesting. It's about a 50-50 split, and the unsure, a lot of those people, from what we heard, and we'll hear from Joe later about kind of some of the takeaways, but they were like, wouldn't really want to, but there is some circumstances if there was something big happening. Right. So, but an interesting thing, and we would not, if we were being biased or only showing stuff we want, we would not show this slide.
Absolutely not. So there's the validity of this this broadcast. So the next policy thing that we asked about was corporate welfare. Are you in favor of? And
we didn't call it corporate welfare.
We did not.
We like saying that, but like we asking in a fair way. We didn't do that.
We said tax credits, tax breaks, tax dollar. What was the exact phrasing of it? It was tax breaks or tax dollars?
I think it was. Do you approve of tax dollars going to a company to bring them into the city of Nashville?
And the results are honestly
good for us.
Good for us.
Yeah.
It was surprising. So the question: do you believe city government should give out tax breaks and/or tax dollars to individual corporations in order to get them to move into the city?
Very close, though. I mean, look at these numbers.
Y'all, I mean, this is unbelievable. 34% said yes, 35% said no, and 31% said unsure. I mean, I think that. I at least think that a lot of the people that said unsure were kind of like, well, it depends on who it is.
Yeah.
Or saying, I mean, I don't know. They really did not know what they would say on a question like that because a lot of citizens haven't been asked about this. There is
and they don't know the specifics
referendum
of it. That's right.
on corporate welfare in Nashville.
There
should be, but there isn't. And so, as far as what that means.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to assume that the people who would benefit the most from this. John Cooper has really spoken out on the council about corporate welfare and about incentives. So this should benefit him. Carol Swain has come out against incentives. John Ray Clemens has basically come out against incentives. So the only person that this really hurts is Briley. But if you want to look at the other way, 34% said yes, and I bet almost all of them are going to support Briley, the people who said yes. So it might not hurt him. And with numbers this close, I'm sure this is a wash. I think it's good for us, though, because everyone assumes that everyone wants tax down. It's like, oh yeah, we want companies to win Amazon. It turns out a lot of Nashvillians don't want that, and that goes across party lines.
Oh, absolutely. I think, one of the things, Mark and I brought it up before on a podcast, but this isn't a Tennessee thing, but what's her name?
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes. So she has also said things about this in New York when companies have come in and there's still homeless people in New York and people don't have, wages. All these different things. She has said, why are we giving tax money to corporations to come into the state, to come into the city when there's still people struggling, when our city still can't pay its own bills?
Yeah, plus the new Green Deal costs like $100 billion. Right,
so, and that's a priority. So it's interesting that this issue does cross party lines, so I don't know if it would be detrimental toward Briley or not.
With these results being so close, I don't think there's going to be an edge for any of them. I think this could help any of them. It could hurt any of them. It's hard to tell, but it's good for us to know that this many people are against corporate handouts in any circumstance in Nashville.
Agreed. Do you have anything else? What else should we cover before the polls close? Because we've got polls closing in about 9 minutes.
That's
so if you have not voted and you live less than 9 minutes from your polling place, you ought to go because voting is. I will stand on my soapbox, talk about voting all day long. Voting is very important. The future of Nashville. If you live here, there's a I mean, there's a lot at stake here. You got the property taxes, you got corporate welfare, you got a ton of other things balancing Nashville's budget.
That's
I mean,
right.
as far as I'm concerned, scooters. I mean, come on, people.
I'm not sure scooters is a huge issue. It is for some people. Though. There's a scooter sign.
I am pro scooter.
Yeah, I honestly think that this is a really, really mixed bag. I mean, you should vote, and that's and kind of the general idea is that you're not supposed to give any kind of actual results away, the journalistic standard, until the polls close, which is why we're not saying what this actually means, and we will get into that in about 8 minutes.
Y'all aren't going to believe this data, okay?
Yes.
So really, really stick with us because.
But I think if you look at this from the whole, there's a couple winners in my mind. I think that John Cooper looks good from this. A lot of these things benefit him. The corporate welfare benefits him for sure. The fiscal responsibility piece benefits him.
Yes.
And I think if you look at John Ray Clemens, there are some liberal issues. Again, a majority of people, or not majority, but I guess what's the word when it's not 50?
Plurality.
That's the word. A plurality of voters are willing to pay higher property taxes.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think John Ray Clemens is the only one who said that. So, I mean, if you're about 44% of people are willing to pay higher, that's got to help him. So this will be interesting. I think we kind of thought of this as a 3-person race, and it's starting to shape up. It might be a 4-person race, depending on what happens. And again, I want to make clear that these are exit polls. They're great, and there's a lot of great information to be gleaned out of these.
Yes.
But let's not assume that these numbers are going to be exactly correct. I mean, exit polls have been wrong on the national level from professional organizations paid to do this. So this is our first time doing it. We had 6 people. We did pick great precincts, and we had a good idea in doing this. But these results should be taken.
We had a lot of respondents.
We had hundreds. I mean, we had hundreds. It wasn't like we had 4 people.
Hundreds of people responded to this.
That's right. But it should be all taken with a grain of salt. I think that the secondary results that we'll show you in about 7 minutes are going to be taken way more seriously, because you're going to see where people who stand in certain ways, how they voted.
But this is a great picture of the Nashville electorate. I think especially during our going out during early voting, when everyone kind of has to go to one centralized location, you're not in different precincts, you're not in different areas. People are coming downtown, and they're coming to vote all in one spot, and we were standing right outside saying, "Can we ask you 60 seconds worth of questions?" And these were the questions that we were asking. I think there were a lot of strong feelings about a lot of different things.
That's right. People were very nice, though. I really liked people.
People were very nice. People were
on both sides.
Yes, but people felt very strongly about certain issues and what those meant as far as the candidates that they were voting for.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we're really excited to see what this is. So let's do a couple, before we have about 6 minutes, and the first thing we'll get in, just so you see, we will get in the results of early voting. And we have last year's early voting, so we have Bays over there and Jacob looking at the early voting thing. So once we get those in, we'll tell you immediately. But we have last year's early voting. But let's look at some polls that were done before the election. We have about 5 minutes to go to see where people. So the Power Poll is a poll that Justin, our CEO, is involved with. Kind of powerful people in Nashville who basically who are in the know politically, and our CEO gets a vote in that. And out of those people, 82% expected Briley to win today.
Like outright win.
To outright, just had to have more votes than the other people, not to win without a runoff.
Okay.
12% expected Cooper to win.
Okay.
And that was the only people that got first place votes.
Okay.
For second place, 66% expected Cooper to win. 6%, or to come in second, 6% Swain, 5% Clemens. So I guess in the political sphere, they're expecting a Briley-Cooper runoff. And a runoff, because I'll tell you the next thing, only 21% of people expected it to be over tonight.
Yes.
79% expected a runoff.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, those 21% of people were wrong. I think that's what we'll find out.
Without giving anything
away, it would be hard to see this not going to runoff. And not only that, it might be hard to see any kind of getting 35%, which is even crazier.
Agreed.
So that was the number there. Now, we also have the Tennessee Star Triton poll that showed
I thought this one was really interesting.
Yeah, it showed Briley at 28%, Swain at 22%, Cooper at 20%, Clemens at 11%, and then 20 undecided.
Which is really telling, because for me, with my political science background, when you've got that many people undecided, are those people going to go vote?
And that's a question. Or who are they going to vote for? I mean, you have 4 people, and all of them were polling in double digits there.
Right.
And that's somewhat, it's not super similar to ours, but we have everyone in double digits as well. But the most interesting part was, in a runoff, Briley would beat Swain 50-31. So again, Swain is the most conservative of the candidates, and Briley would basically kill her in a runoff. But Cooper would defeat Briley 42-31 in a runoff.
This is the first time I'm hearing these
Oh,
numbers.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if y'all just saw my eyes go like this. So that's the first time I'm hearing these numbers.
Cooper would actually be a favorite probably against Briley in a runoff.
Wow.
Now there's a couple questions. I'm not sure, and we will see. I mean, we don't know the results yet, but it's possible, not likely, that Briley could not even be in the runoff. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not saying I do think he will be, but it's possible.
But it is possible.
Absolutely, because these people are polling very, very close. I mean, if the Tennessee Star polls right, 28, 22, 20, that's a get out the vote game. That's a money game.
That's really close.
And Cooper has done something interesting, and we still have 3 minutes till polls close, so I want to talk about this. But
is this her marketing thing?
Yeah, have you seen his ads? His TV ad?
No, it's great.
Yeah, well, he's done a great job talking about neighborhoods. But the interesting thing is that he really, the first couple months of this not primary, but before the runoff, or the general election, he kept saying, he was kind of appealing to right-wingers, not super right, but like, I'm a moderate, I'm fiscally responsible, I believe in our neighborhoods, things like that. And over the past 2 weeks, he's really veered left. His staff did something about Mayor Pete, talking about how great he was, which is obviously a Democratic type thing, liberal type thing. You had this commercial where a woman on there said, he's a progressive champion.
Yeah.
So and he was embracing the progressive label in his commercial. So it's interesting, and he's trying to thread a needle. My assumption is that he thinks that he will be in a runoff with Briley. And his thing is, I better go a little bit left now because I don't want to be seen as too far right for a general election. I have no idea, but
coming from the marketing minds at Beacon, who have, like I've said before, Mark and I we've played this game.
Yeah.
We've done the campaign thing, we've done the election thing, and coming from two marketing people, I think you're right on the money with that.
And one other thing too, I feel like it's easy to count out Carol Swain and John Ray Clemens. Don't count them out. They have a strong base. They have money. They have name ID. So I feel like this idea that it's a foregone conclusion of Briley versus Cooper is just not accurate. So I'm interested to see what happens when these poll results come in. And we have about 2 minutes, and then we can actually go to our next slide.
Right, and y'all are just really not going to believe what's coming up here. But we want to hear from you. We have comments enabled on YouTube. We have comments enabled on Facebook,
Twitter.
And on Twitter, please comment.
If you have questions, we have Jason over there kind of following this, and he'll kind of ask them, or not Jay, I'm sorry, Joe's over there following this, and if you have questions, we'll kind of get them in the show. And we're also going to have a fun little segment soon where we're going to talk to some of the people, or people who did exit polling, so they can kind of talk to them about what
for you guys to hear from
That's right.
them.
What they felt, how they felt the election went, what they thought some of the takeaways were from kind of their own personal experience. So it is almost 7 o'clock.
We have 1 minute until the polls close.
I think you put the.
I'm like a little nervous, kind of.
I know. I'm excited to see these results, and again, I feel like we have.
I'm excited to tell our results of what we got. I'm more excited than anything.
And we have really good numbers too from last election. So we have all the district precincts here, Briley percentage, Swain percentage, other percentage, and then we'll see as they come in. We'll be able to compare, and that's what we have our guys over there looking at. So
we literally just have a few seconds. I'm waiting,
it's 7
here
o'clock.
It is.
Polls are closed.
Polls are closed.
So
no more voting.
No more voting.
Also, something that we want to hear from you guys on that's been talked about a lot. If you want to let us know, what do you think about the new voting format in Nashville?
Yeah, we'll talk about.
That's been something that's really been discussed, and we want to hear from you what you think of it. What are your thoughts?
That's right. So let's show the fun results now. Let's move in, and here we go. We have some real numbers now.
Okay, so
what's our first one?
So we talked about, the very first thing we talked about today was the most important issue that people voted on. If you remember, the order went fiscal responsibility was first, education, accountability, transportation, managing growth, and housing. This I'm so excited to show.
So what we're going to tell is we're going to go to each issue and see who they voted for. So the first one, the people who listed fiscal responsibility and taxes their number one issue?
Most likely, people who we talked to, the most people said that they voted for Cooper. If they put fiscal responsibility and taxes their number one issue, 38% of those people voted for John Cooper.
Which is number one issue. And then Carol Swain at 32%. So it's very close. And then if you look at the other ones, Clemens 8, Briley 3, which is not really surprising. I mean, they're kind of more of the liberal type people that the fiscal responsibility thing might not be their main takeaway. But let's talk this out. This is terrible news for Carol Swain.
Yes.
Terrible news.
It is, because she has positioned herself as a fiscal responsibility candidate.
Yes.
And yet our polling results are putting John Cooper 6% ahead of her as far as the fiscal responsibility, fiscal hawk candidate.
That's right. Now, let's not get too into this because, again, it's only 25% of the people who answered with a certain, answer. So
Right.
it's only probably about 10% of the electorate, but Cooper off to a great start. He's got to love it. He was appealing to Republicans. He was appealing to fiscal conservatism, and he paid off big time. So that's our first one.
All right. People who put education, people who prioritize education. Again, you've got Cooper at 41% of the people, which you just said a second ago.
I didn't think that was. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Happen. And here we go. Cooper 41%.
Cooper 41%. I don't know that education's really been a big issue for him. I mean, it's not been as big as some of the other ones.
I was very surprised at this. Not to say that he's not an education guy.
Sure.
I don't know.
But you see the second two are Briley and Clemens. They both got 22% apiece, which is not bad. And where's Carol Swain at? 7%. So we were kind of right about it being more of a public school type thing. I was just wrong about who got the numbers.
Right.
So Briley and Clemens staying in there, and then Cooper 41% is huge. So first two polls, Cooper has got to be feeling great about his chance to runoff.
Because the number 1 and 2 issues that people are voting on, he's running away with.
That's right. So what about 3?
The third issue that people are voting on is accountability. So I thought this was really interesting. You've got a political...
Oh, whoa.
Yes. So you've got Carol Swain at 56% of people who view accountability as their number 1 issue, which, honestly... Again, coming from people who've done the political game, getting an outsider, a political outsider. Yes, she's run for office before, but she's a professor. You know, this is not her game. But she's pulling ahead with 56%. Then you've got Clemens and Cooper tied at 19. And y'all, not a single Briley voter that we talked to, not a single person that said that they were prioritizing accountability voted for Briley, which Mark said at the very beginning of this, and I kind of called him on it, forgetting that this number was up here. I said maybe this is people calling for accountability. It's kind of a referendum on David Briley, and I thought, hold on, it might be Megan Barry holdovers. I don't know, but I mean, based on this data.
And Carol Swain's talking points work, right? She was the transparency candidate. She talked about transparency. She talked about accountability in City Hall. And look, this is great for her. This is a huge number. And I would have expected Cooper and Clemens to both be a little bit higher. So
I know.
The fact that Swain ran away with this, again, the first two, not great for her. That one is great for her.
That one really pulled ahead. The next one that people were really talking about was traffic, transit, transportation. That's their number 1 issue. You've got Clemens with 47% of that vote, which Mark actually predicted just a minute ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because the one thing we talked about is that Briley was a supporter of the transit plan, but he wasn't as full-throated of a supporter as Megan Barry was. He kind of felt like he had to take that mantle and that was next, and that's something that he had to do. But John Ray Clemens has talked about, he said, we need this. This is really, really important.
Right.
And this is something that people wanted. He was right. I mean, 47% of people who said transit or traffic said John Ray Clemens. Again, this is probably the guy who's projected to finish 4th. So for him to win any category in the top 5 this big is a huge deal for him.
But that just goes to show, you know, I've been reading a lot of news articles about this, and the Tennessean kind of did a profile of what each candidate was running on, and in their article they said Clemens was a transit candidate. Cooper was a housing. He talked about housing a lot. Swain talked about accountability a lot. And it's showing in these results. So
and you can see a lot of the people, their main points that they really focused on, they're polling well there. Not surprising. It means that they were effective at least in trying to get that point across.
Exactly. The next category that came up as number 1 issue that people were voting for, we had managing growth. I thought this was really interesting how the numbers came out on this. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see on the screen, but you've got Cooper at 29% and Briley at 29%. So what does that mean for Briley? Like, what does that mean that he is the mayor? He's been the mayor during this huge time of growth where we were hearing that all these people are moving to Nashville, but then you've got someone who people see as equally likely to be highly responsible for managing the growth of Nashville, someone who is his competitor.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, John Cooper cannot feel any better than what we're doing right now. I mean, he's got to feel great about this. Briley's still there, and I mean, I think Swain, you might expect her to be a little bit higher on there.
I definitely expected her to be.
But again, you have to look, we're looking at 1 through 4, but they're all pretty close. They're all within 15%. So over the amount of votes we did, that might only be 5 votes. So it's not a huge number of votes here. So I think it's interesting that Cooper and Briley are there. I thought Briley would do better in the managing this.
I absolutely did too. And then the last one that we talked about, this should not come as a surprise to anyone. The people who listed housing as their number 1 issue, Briley ran away with that one.
Wow, 50%. So he's the first one to hit 50, right?
He's the first one to hit. Well, no, Carol Swain had 56.
That's right. That's right. Okay, you're right.
And so Briley had 50% as far as housing goes, which that I don't think, does that come as a surprise to you?
No, not really. I thought Clemens might do a little better, especially with the
too.
affordable housing. Obviously, Swain getting 0% is not surprising to me. But again, you look at this, in every one of these categories, it seems like Cooper's at least 15%.
I know.
So, being in the top here is good. And Swain's kind of going from really high to really low. So that's interesting. Those are the top categories. If you got to take away from here, it seems like Clemens is doing better than expected. Probably Cooper and Briley are kind of neck and neck right now based on these. But let's look at the other ones. There's a lot more here. We have about 35 slides.
I know. We have a lot going on here.
And we're still updating here. We have our whole team over there, so there's no results that have come in yet. So we are waiting for that, and we will let you know.
But we are waiting, and we will report immediately as
That's
they are
right.
posted. Mark is over there. We're all kind of over here refreshing.
God, so many devices. I don't know what to do.
I've got 3 here. You've got 2.
Yeah.
All of our co-workers, our interns, all got phones, computers out, and we're ready to hear what's about to happen. So the one that I thought was really interesting, and we keep referencing this, is the approval of President Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I always think that this is interesting because when you're talking about the approval of someone who is viewed as the leader of one certain ideology that plays into a Republican Party, how do people vote based on that? So this number, those who approved of President Trump,
which is not a lot,
which is not a lot, 64% of those voted for Carol Swain, 27% voted for Cooper, and then you got single digits for everyone else.
Yeah, so Swain, you got to feel good about that, but I think she wants to be up closer to 90% of that number. The fact that Cooper was kind of able to stay in the middle there, and he did a pretty good job there, and still got almost over a quarter of Trump supporters, says a lot about him. I think Swain feels good about this, but she'd like to be a lot closer to 80 or 90, I think.
I know. I would absolutely think that, especially with how Trump, whether or not you think he's conservative, he's branded himself as a conservative.
That's right. Wait, here's a question. Who were the 5% who voted for John Ray Clemens and liked President Trump? I would like to meet those people.
I know. If you were one of those people, call us.
Yeah, we want to talk to you.
We want to talk to you, because that is an interesting result.
That is very, very interesting,
Did not see that one coming. And so then, if you remember, we'll go back to what those numbers actually looked like. So
I think it was, 68.
Only 24% of the people that we polled actually approved of President Trump. So that's a pretty small sampling. 68% of people that we polled did not approve of President Trump.
So this number of the people who don't like Trump is going to be more important probably for this election.
So this is going to be really indicative. Those who disapprove of President Trump, 37% voted in support of Briley.
Oh, man, wow.
This is insane.
So these are people, again, I know we got to cut it off a little bit. These are people who do not approve of the president.
Yes. So 37% of these people voted for Mayor Briley. 30% voted for Clemens and 29% voted for Cooper. That's really close right there in the middle, and then massive drop off into Swain and other candidates.
Yeah, and what's interesting is Briley, Clemens, and Cooper were all pretty close for people who did not approve of Trump. But you have to realize, this is a huge number. We're talking about, what was it, 60?
It was 68%, I think.
68%.
64, 68.
And you have Briley at 37% of those. That's a big number. Mm-hmm. So even though Clemens and Cooper are both at 30%, taking 37% of almost 70% of the electorate is a big deal.
I completely agree.
So this is a great number for Briley. It's an incredible number for Cooper. Again, he was second on people who approve for Trump, and still got almost a third of the people who don't approve of Trump. So he's done
That's honestly one of the biggest takeaways, I think, from this, because let's go back to that graphic.
He's done a good job threading the needle.
Briley got 3% of voters who approve of President Trump, and like Mark said, Cooper got 27% of those and 29% of those who disapprove. That's pretty interesting, pretty big number for him. His team's got to be feeling pretty good about that right now.
Yeah, and again, David Briley has to be happy with this. John Ray Clemens, again, the fourth candidate getting 30% of this big number, has to like this too. Everyone has to feel decent about it. Carol Swain would like to get more than 3% of that. And again, 3% of 64, 68%. That's not great for her chances here. But again, she just needs to come in second. That's all she needs.
That's all she needs. So let's move on to some policy questions, shall we?
Great.
Mark's favorite, some corporate welfare talk. So, and all of these also, I'll say it again and again and again, all of this information, all these graphs, these images are available on our social media outlets. They're available on Twitter and Facebook. Feel free, share them with your friends, colleagues, family, whoever needs to see this.
And let's give props to our designer, Lauren, who designed all these today. I mean, we got these results in at like 11 o'clock.
Our designer, Lauren, who's
we
very
had hundreds
pregnant,
of people, very pregnant.
getting ready to leave on maternity leave.
That's right.
And we said, can you do this? And she cranked them out in 2 hours.
To be clear, she doesn't look very pregnant. She just is very pregnant.
She just is very pregnant.
Yeah, she looks great.
Of course. So I thought that this one, Mark, if you've ever listened to Mark talk about anything, it's probably been about corporate welfare. First of all, you shouldn't.
Or the Jazz.
Okay, yes. Two things that Mark likes to talk about, the Utah Jazz and corporate welfare. So this number has been something that we've been looking at a lot. Those who believe city government should give out corporate tax breaks, so people who are in favor of the tax
people are in favor of giving out tax breaks to businesses.
This is not going to be surprising to anyone. Briley came in first on this.
David Briley first. I mean, that's kind of been his thing. He's been kind of
33%.
33% surprised, but he's been the guy. He's kind of a continuation of Megan Barry,
right?
Kind of the liberal, but who's kind of, they say, business friendly,
right?
And is giving out a lot of money to Amazon, to a bunch of other companies that come in there. And sometimes he's hiding how much money he's giving out, but whatever. But
that was a subtle dig at.
That wasn't that subtle.
Stay tuned for our pork report.
Yeah, exactly. But again, surprising. 25% for Cooper. Cooper is against these.
That was shocking to me.
So it basically means that these people
don't see this as an issue, really.
They don't.
Like
it's not a huge issue for them. They're saying, you know what? I like this idea of tax incentives, but I like Cooper more. Swain at 20% makes sense. She's been against it, and Clemens at 18 makes sense. Again, this number. This was a majority, or no, it's a slight minority, and this number, it's all very close. Briley got an 8% edge, which is pretty good. I think Clemens and Swain both hung in there. But yeah, I think that Briley wins on this, but Cooper wins more. Again, this is not his issue.
I know.
And we're going to see next the people who don't think you should give out corporate tax rates.
I think that's a really good point. Let's dig into that a little bit. So we're looking at Briley coming ahead on this, and I think that what you just said, Briley wins on this, but Cooper wins more.
Yep.
That's a really important note to make, because we are talking about, just like we've already said, people who do not like, Cooper does not like corporate welfare. These people do like corporate welfare, but they like him more. Yeah. I think that based on a lot of these numbers, his team should be feeling pretty good about their chances of
and a runoff, absolutely,
of pulling ahead here. So of the people who do not believe the city, again, the people who do not believe the city should give out corporate tax breaks, you got Cooper pulling ahead at 33%. So not only is he first in the category of people who shouldn't, he's second in the category of people who. Okay, let me rephrase, because that was just a mangled mess. Of the people who think that corporate welfare should not happen, Cooper is number one. Of the people that think corporate welfare should happen, Cooper is number two. And of the people who approve of corporate welfare, Briley was number one. He has dropped all the way to the bottom of these numbers at 17%.
But again, 17 is not terrible. For the guy who gives out money to everybody.
Last.
It is last, but for as much as he gives out, and he's the only candidate out of these four who is very, very pro-corporate welfare, and 17% is not bad, considering this is an issue that he's terrible onto these people.
It's true.
John Ray Clemens makes sense. Again, I think Swain at 22%, she would like to be a little bit higher, because she has made corporate welfare one of the issues of her campaign.
Right.
And I think that's something that's important. As she would like to be, I think, above John Ray Clemens. But we're seeing a pattern like emerge here of Clemens is doing a little bit better than you might think, and Swain might be doing a little bit worse than we might think she was doing.
Right, it's just really surprising to me, like I said. So let's move on to property taxes, shall we?
Yep, absolutely. Property taxes sound good.
Okay, so people who would never support a property tax increase,
which again was a minority to our
dismay. It was a minority. Let's scroll back to this. People said, just as a refresher, 44% of people that we polled would, at some point in the future, support a property tax increase in Davidson County. 37% would never. So of that 37% polled who would never support a property tax increase in Davidson County, sorry, we have a ton.
Yeah, there's a lot of slides.
We have a ton of slides.
And we're still waiting for results, by the way. We're checking, said nothing yet. So
of that 37%, 36% of those people are casting their vote for Cooper.
Okay, so Cooper and Swain are really close there at the top.
On the no property tax thing, which is not surprising.
And it is. I mean, again, Briley did pretty well there with 18%. Again, because I mean, he was against it, but we talked about him. He's not. He is a pretty liberal guy generally.
Right.
Clemens at 9% makes perfect sense. But let's take one look at the 5% other. That's actually a decent number of somebody who voted for one of these other candidates. I mean, 5% could swing an election here easily.
I know. So you've got that. So you had 37% of people who would never like the property taxes. The majority of people, though, said that they could at some point in their lives consider a property tax increase in Nashville. Of that 60 whatever percent that would have been, 40% of those voters voted for
Mayor Briley,
which.
Again, now, so Mayor Briley has got to feel good about this. He didn't even support a property tax increase himself. Yet people who do support a property tax increase were willing to vote for him over John Ray Clemens, who was supportive of it.
Which, again, this goes back to a principle issue.
That's right.
You're looking at these candidates not necessarily on their specific policy positions, but on the principles that they are associated with.
And I mean, how good do you need to feel? I mean, again, we've kind of, I think he's underperformed a little bit, but these last two polls for David Briley have been excellent. For him to be able to be competitive with people who don't support a property tax, and then
his team has got to be feeling good.
And then win the people who do support a property tax, even though he himself does not.
Exactly. So if that's any indication of what's to come, Briley's team is going to be feeling good based on these results as far as the principled policy questions go.
And the biggest loser on this is John Ray Clemens. I mean, this should be his issue. He should have won this issue.
He should have soared to the front of this
33% is good, but the fact that Briley beats him here is not great for him. Cooper, honestly, just doesn't go below 19%. It doesn't look like for anything. But again, I think that Cooper would like to be a little bit higher on this one. 19% is not great, and he's way behind these other two. And again, most people said they would support a property tax increase.
Right.
So 19% is not great for Cooper. Swain, 7% is about what you'd expect in this situation.
Right, of course. So then we asked people to self-identify. What do they think that they are? You'll remember we had conservative and liberal were kind of neck and neck, and then moderate really took the lead on that.
Yeah.
So individuals who self-identify as liberal,
which is a high percentage, right? Was it 28%? It's 28%.
It's 28%.
So this is a big percentage of people.
People who self-identify as liberal
man.
more likely by a long shot to vote for Clemens, which we keep saying over and over and over. David Briley's a pretty liberal guy.
Yeah, he is.
But
Clemens has done an effective job of going to his left, and that's what everyone's been worried about. Without Clemens, Briley might hit 50%, but it is crazy that Clemens got 47% of this number and Briley only got 31%. So you can see Clemens has effectively gone to the left of him.
I agree.
Are we getting numbers? Oh, it looks like we have some numbers coming in.
I think we're getting some numbers.
Oh, man.
We'll get back to these polling results here in a second.
Okay, so we have early voting done here. It looks like how many total votes do we have here? Okay, so the early voting is done, and wow, I think that our numbers are interesting.
Wait, are they?
John Cooper at 36% is in the lead by 10 points over David Briley at 26%. Carol Swain, 20%. John Ray Clemens, 15%, which, truthfully, we didn't release our total numbers, are very in line with the numbers that we had. They're very close, and at this point...
Joe, do you want to come write these on the board so that people can see them, please?
Wow. Okay, and I want to talk about last year's early vote, because I brought this up.
While Joe's writing, we're going to talk about what I will say, we've done a lot of research preparing for this. We have been doing a lot of work pulling up old, like you said, last year's voting, as far as early voting and election day voting. And so Mark has pulled up a lot of numbers. We're going to be throwing a lot of numbers at you. If you have any questions, send us a message on Facebook. Wow. We're monitoring all of those things. But Joe's going to write these numbers up here. Here they are, Joe, right here on my screen.
This is huge. So while Joe's writing that, let me read you what happened last time here. 54% of people in the 2018 early vote voted for David Briley. He got 26%. So his early vote is down by more than 50%. His team is got to be in full panic mode.
Freaking out.
Here's a question. Does he even make a runoff? I mean, this is a serious issue for him. Carol Swain at almost nearly 21%.
I know.
And again, like we talked about, John Ray Clemens, don't underestimate him. He had 15%.
Where are you looking? I'm looking at WKRN. I'm looking at the wrong thing.
No, I'm on the state's website.
Okay, Joe, look at Mark's screen, not mine.
I'll read. Yeah, so check this one out.
Mark's screen over here. Yeah.
So John Cooper, 36%. Here's what I'm going to say, and we're not a news agency, so
we are not a news agency.
We're not. It is going to a runoff, folks. The question is, who will be facing John Cooper? In my opinion, 36% in the early.
Okay, that's a really hot take.
This is over a third of the vote. And Cooper's up by 10 points over his next biggest opponent.
Holy.
John Cooper spent the money. He had a great campaign strategy, and it is paying off huge in early voting. I mean,
this is something that Mark has been saying, because we tend to, although we have done the political thing here and there, we think is in marketing terms. And one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is who has the best get out the vote campaign.
And I think it was me and Bays. We did our own Beacon predictions, which we have another slide. I think me and Bays are the only ones who picked Cooper to win or to have a higher total in the early voting. Everyone thought Briley, and me and Bays are smarter than everyone. I think is what it turns out. Now look, it's not over yet.
Do you people see my eyes rolling right now?
Briley could still easily overtake him, but the easiest thing to see here is that Cooper did incredibly well here.
I know.
And Briley did well last time in the early voting.
I'm still digesting all of this
Wow.
because this is not what I expected.
I'm trying to think if there's any other takeaways. It looks like John Saul got...
Refresh your page, make sure.
Yeah, it looks like, nobody else got over 1%. But again, let's talk about John Ray Clemens at 15% is a real thing. I mean, that matters.
That does matter.
So this is really, really...
I'm a little shook. I'm not going to lie to you.
This is big. I mean, we're talking about about 40,000 votes, it looks like. Is that about right? Can you guys count the total votes?
Do we know what's going on? Yeah.
Okay, they're going to add that up on their things. But wow, that is...
Here's the thing, guys. We had all these staff predictions.
Oh my gosh.
We've been talking about this for a really long time.
And I predicted Cooper 35%. Let's not forget that.
And we were all like, all right, Mark, whatever. And look what's happening.
But again,
there's nothing I hate more than when Mark's right.
No, but it's a third of the way through, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we have this right now. Right now, Cooper's got to feel great. Briley's still got 26%. And again, you have to remember, Briley, nobody's going to get, okay, so 50,000 votes. So we have about half of what we're expecting. I think they're expecting about 110. So we're talking about maybe, I guess, about 45% of the total vote. Our exit polls showing good things for Cooper seem like they were accurate.
I know.
But again, it seems very, very unlikely anybody's going to hit 50%.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter for David Briley if he comes in first or second.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter who comes in first or second, as long as no one gets 50% plus one.
And again, let's talk about this. Swain lost by 31 percentage points in last year's early vote.
Hey, check this out.
This year,
is this what you're looking at now?
No, it's only 500 votes.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. Refresh your page. I got
these are the initial results. It will take a while for the actual precincts to come in now. So yeah, this is great information. And Carol Swain did great. She got 20% of the vote. She has to feel pretty good about that too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I definitely would.
Okay, so let's go. So we have these numbers. We're going to keep an eye on it. Let's go to the rest of these results.
Let's go back to these exit polls. So the last thing we were talking about before the numbers started coming in and everyone started freaking out was people who self-identify with certain ideologies. So people who were self-identifying as having a liberal ideology, 47% of those individuals voted for John Ray Clemens. 31% voted for David Briley, which, as we said, was a bit of a surprise. You would think, and I'm sure his team would hope, that it would be higher. Cooper got 18%, not surprising. Swain 4%, super not surprising. Now,
so it's surprising that one or two people voted for her.
That's fair. So then we had those who identify as moderate.
And this is the biggest
moderate
thing
was the
by
biggest one,
far,
by
and it wasn't even close.
So it was about 44% of voters that said they were moderate, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. 36% of those moderate voters voted for Briley, and 33% of those voters voted for Cooper.
Which is what we talked about before. It's
Briley's considered
close. Yeah, Briley's considered a moderate to the. And again, we don't. A lot of our polling was done today, so most of our polling was not early voting like we're seeing. So these are going to be more relevant, I think, of the results coming in. But again, Briley's a pretty left guy. So for people who self-identify as moderate, for him to have the lead on them, I would expect Cooper to win this. I would expect Cooper to win this by 10, 15 points.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So Briley's team is probably feeling pretty set right now with the, I mean,
at least with this one,
number.
I think they're probably so concerned about the early vote that they're not even caring about this. But
yeah, you're probably right. They're like, exit polls don't matter anymore. Things are coming in, but they do. I mean, we got a long night sitting here watching these come in. And if our exit polls mean anything, then we just might have a job doing exit polling for the rest of our lives.
I'll tell you what. I think we have. Can we get a list, you guys over there? Can we have a list of the total voters Briley got last time? The total number of voters that voted for him. I have a list of general, but I mean, it shouldn't be hard to find. So let's look at this too. John Ray Clemens and Carol Swain both getting double digits in self-identified moderates is pretty good because they're
really
the far left and the far right of this field.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, Cooper's high. I think Cooper would like to have done better among this demographic.
Totally. So this next number, we were sitting in here earlier today, we were talking about this next number. People who voted, in the special election, that's perfect. People who voted for Briley in 2018, so that was one of the questions we asked. We said, did you vote for Briley in 2018?
And I remember I saw this one.
Did you vote Briley
this is the most shocking thing. Please pay attention to this slide.
This is the big one.
People who voted for Briley in 2018. Oh boy.
Voters voted for him again this time.
This is devastating.
Yes.
This is devastating.
This is not what you want to see.
42% of the people who voted for him last time voted for him this time as an incumbent.
That's not good retention.
And look, if Briley doesn't win this race, you know who he has to thank? John Ray Clemens. 27%. Okay, so as a note, we're getting based.
Working on this.
So Briley got 45,000 votes total. That is total last election.
In 2018, 45,000 Nashville voters voted for Briley, and remember, he ran away with it. There was no runoff.
John Cooper already has 18,000 in early voting, which is, and Briley, more importantly, Briley has 13,000.
Okay,
he's down by 5,000 votes. Thank you for those numbers, guys.
Slow it down. Let's say that one more time. So you have Briley had 44,000 voters in the last time he was up for election.
And he only had 13,000 in early voting.
He's at 13, and in early voting, John Cooper is at over 18.
Let me get my special calculator here. So it looks like Briley went. I don't have the exact number, but it looks like he went about 22,000 in early voting last time. So he is falling way behind where he was last time. And this is not what you want if you're running a campaign. Just want to say that if you're a candidate, you're running a campaign. Let's forget these exit polls. Let's look at the fact that this slide right here, David Briley will certainly not hit 50%. I do not think David Briley will win the vote. I think Cooper will come in first, and Briley's going to have to scratch and claw for second.
Y'all remember that? I'm writing this down right now. What time is it? At 7:28?
Yeah. I mean, now again, these are my predictions. These are not official Beacon predictions. But that number is the worst thing we've seen for any candidate so far.
Yeah. It really is. This is not what you want to see.
This is a 66.
I've been on this side of an election before, and you see that, and it's a little jarring. Gosh. I've seen that.
Now,
it's not what you want.
Let's turn around real quick. But 66% of people voted for Briley last time. So 42% of 66% is still not bad and puts him in pretty good shape for the runoff. But he would like to be about 85. And the fact that John Ray Clemens took 27. John Cooper took 21%. Those are big, big numbers of his closest competitors, and this is.
And you even had some of them turn over to Swain.
Well, that 4% of people voted for.
All I'm saying is it's people. Okay.
No, what kind of people?
Oh, what do we got? We got some numbers. More numbers.
We have more numbers. What do you have from there, Baze?
Our guys are.
News Channel 5 has numbers. Now, let's see if these are. Okay, we have News Channel 5 up right now. How many? Okay, so that looks like basically just the early voting with a couple extra numbers. Okay.
Do you guys who are watching feel like you're watching it with us? Because we're all kind of
sharing
we're all
this
experience
and
together.
News Channel 5 usually does a really good job getting the results, and that's what Taylor found out. But we're checking kind of the Nashville election site too. Mm-hmm. So let's. I mean, so again, we'll take a look at that real quick. Some people are questioning our. I see on Twitter there's a lot of people questioning our election results as far right. Apparently, far right people want to pay higher property taxes. So obviously they're not watching. Of course, we have people like that, but I mean,
we would not have if we were skewing this at all. We would not have said that a lot of Nashville voters.
So I don't think anybody's really concerned about him.
A lot of Nashville voters are not a fan of this.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So that's a huge slide we looked at. Briley in major trouble. So what do we have next?
So the next slide is individuals who voted for Carol Swain in the last time. 57% of them voted for her again, and 39% of them voted for Cooper. So everyone is losing voters to Cooper.
And this is...
I'm really shocked. I'm not even going to try to hide it.
This is arguably worse news for Swain than it was for Briley.
Yes.
She
100%.
only had 23%. She pretty much had to retain all of those people and probably pick up a few.
Right.
And the fact that she only got about 60% of her base from last time, just not good. It's hard to see anything good coming out of this. And again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. We still have a long night in front of me, but Carol Swain has got to be feeling terrible about that number.
Yes.
That's really bad.
That's not what her team wants to see.
No, and Briley and Swain both got to be not feeling great. I think, again, John Ray Clemens probably feeling pretty good compared to where he started at. But to me, it looks like, I mean, it's basically, at this point, it seems like a three-way race to face off against Cooper, with Briley having a slight edge at this point.
Absolutely.
So what else we got here?
These things are coming in. We just really ran down our exit polling data from the last time. We're getting some comments. People.
Do you predict Swain or Cooper as second? Well, I think we predict Cooper as first, and we'll see about second. I mean, probably Briley at second now would be my prediction, but we have a long night to go.
Going into this, I want to go to
go to the
slide.
Go to the beacon ones.
So we did staff predictions. We on Monday, Justin came in. We sent all of our predictions to one place. And so we asked for the question was who comes in first at what percentage and who comes in second at what percentage. The overwhelming consensus, other than Mark and Bays, the overwhelming consensus was that Briley would come in first and Cooper would come in second.
So let's see those
results.
results.
Among our staff, with names removed, this is the averages. Our staff said that Briley would come in first with 36.8% and Cooper would come in second with 29.6%.
Looks like that must be the right number, but just flipped around at this point.
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to say it.
No, I mean, he's right. He's right there. Yeah. Wow. This is
really, really shocking.
Is there any precinct data yet or not? Okay. Well, the election people told us there would be, but I guess we'll find out.
We will find out.
I guess there's no actual precincts reporting yet, so it'll be hard to just the early voting.
I'm really interested. We're going to come to some of y'all's Facebook comments here and see what people are saying. This is really funny. Our staff is also commenting here.
I believe that is all of early voting. They usually kind of do it all at once. That was a question from Stephanie. They usually kind of put that all in one swat. So I'm guessing again, we're talking about 50,000 votes, which is about right.
50,000 people their votes are showing up at the moment.
Yeah.
This is really interesting.
I'm glad the base can add, because I can't. So let's talk.
And y'all know I can't do math.
Let's go back to the exit polls. We have a few more here.
No, this was the wrap up of our exit polls.
Okay, so that was it.
Yes. So,
no.
What do you think is the most important thing to go back to and dig into a little more?
I mean, so tell me what you think the most important thing is, but it's very clear to me it is Briley's percentage compared to last time, and it's Carol Swain's percentage compared to last time, and the fact that Cooper was able to pick up on both of those people. So he has done this excellent job of threading the needle. Let's say this one more time. We talked about, there's almost definitely going to be a runoff. If there's not a runoff, it's because Cooper wins outright.
Right.
Which is crazy to think about. And I still think that's very, very unlikely.
Right.
But it seems like Cooper is the favorite to come in first. What is your biggest takeaway from this?
My biggest takeaway, I think, is, as y'all can all tell, I am shocked that Cooper has pulled ahead in the way that he has. I am new to Nashville. I have been here for less than a year, and so I've really been taking things in with really no prior history. I was involved in politics in Alabama before I came here. I'm coming into this with no prior history of knowing what the electorate looks like in Nashville, but just based on name ID alone, I was expecting Mayor Briley to really run away with this. This is what I'm shocked about.
I really did think Cooper was going to win outright. I thought it was going to be very, very close, and I did not think.
He's been saying this for weeks, y'all.
I think Clemens has been my biggest surprise, though. I think he is going to compete in this race. I think he's going to come close to 20%.
You know, I'll say I live in the Nations, and I have seen over in West Nashville. There's a lot of John Ray Clemens signs. He's been campaigning hard. I have friends who have been to his town halls. It was someone that I was not expecting to pull ahead in anything. And I will say that when I was doing my exit polling, again, coming in with no prior knowledge, and I'm hearing a lot of Clemens, it was not what I was expecting. I just have never been in a situation where an incumbent has kind of gotten washed out.
I mean, look, it's just...
I'm shocked.
And he's losing votes from both sides.
I know.
He's losing votes from the left. He's losing votes from the right to Cooper. He's losing from the left to... and he's just, I'm not trying to trash the guy. I mean, he's probably a nice guy, but his personality is not... These other people have kind of these, especially John Ray Clemens, he's got these good personalities. He can bring people on board this message. Carol Swain does too, I think, to some extent. And he is just kind of boring. And I don't know, and that...
I just got word from Stephanie, she's watching the news. She said that there are still people in line at some precincts.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure quite how that's going to work.
Yeah, that is weird.
Because it's 7:36. So does that mean that people didn't get in to vote who wanted to vote?
Yeah, we'll have to look at. Let's check out Twitter to see if any of the news stations are reporting that there's So what we're going to do right now is, because we all have to go to the bathroom and this is a live broadcast, we have no commercials or anything like that. We're going to have Joe come up and they're going to kind of talk about these exit polls and things that. And Joe, who are you coming up with?
Jacob.
Okay, Joe and Jacob are going to come up here, talk about the exit polls they did, and some of their takeaways. Again, they were the ones on the ground doing it, and see what they took. So we have the numbers, but just kind of some general feelings and some takeaways. So
just some feedback.
We're going to take this off. I'm going to go get some water, and we get a break for a second here.
Yes, and I'm going to take my laptop with me. Sorry, guys.
I will keep this here. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. And
clip these mics on, guys.
It will be very interesting to hear from put these mics on and talk into this.
And we'll be back to
tell us about this. And we have the numbers here. We will be right back.
Alrighty. All right, guys. Joe Kirkpatrick here with Jacob Nessel.
Hi.
Thank you all very much for tuning in tonight. Really enjoyable time during the exit polling. It's always great to get out in Nashville, hang out with our fellow Nashvillians, and see what they're thinking about as this important election comes up. So right now, we want to talk about what main issues did our fellow Nashvillians care about? Why were they going to the polls? A lot of people immediately said, to vote for mayor, which absolutely makes sense. But we wanted to say, okay, we get it, you're voting for mayor, but what issues do you care about? You know, we've seen education, property taxes, transit, things of that nature. So we're just going to go over a couple of the issues that we really found to be important and why, how our fellow Nashvillians reacted. So one of those big things was education. I saw a lot of families walking in, mothers bringing their kids, mothers and fathers walking in with their kids. And when they came out, oftentimes education was really important to them. Obviously, they have children, and that's the future. And it's no surprise. I think 50% of Nashville's budget goes to education here in Davidson County.
It's a huge portion, and I think of all of the issues, even though education wasn't the number one by proportion, I think when I said what's one issue that you really cared about that influenced how you voted today, a lot of people would kind of think about it, they would go back and forth. The people who knew their answer right off the spot were usually the people who said education. Yeah. The education people said, definitely education. They wouldn't think about it. Some people would list off 6 or 7 things, but the people who listed more than one thing always included education in there for me. It was a huge, important deal for a lot of these people.
Yeah, I agree with that. They would say, we've got kids in the public school system. It doesn't seem to be working for everyone. We need a fix here. And I've heard a stat that there are more coffee shops in East Nashville than there are high schoolers who graduate who are proficient in math.
I think I've heard that stat before.
So, with as much money as we spend on the public schools, we really need to make sure that that's being held accountable and working towards the students. So definitely education was big. Growth of Nashville in general seemed to be pretty prominent with the folks that I spoke with. I think, looking out, there's cranes everywhere. Every day there's something, another street shut down, or, you've got the woohoo girls coming in, which is cool. Yeah. But the Nashville's growth and maybe trying to ensure that it's sustainable and that everyone's involved and it doesn't pertain just to a certain group of people that benefit from that growth. That seemed to be pretty important as well.
Definitely, and there were a lot of people who we spoke to, who Baze and I had, who were actually recent transplants. Several different people who we talked to said, "Yeah, I didn't vote in the last election, the 2018 election, because I wasn't here." You know, so I think that was a bit of a surprise to me. But I guess it just makes sense with how much Nashville's been growing, and so. A lot of those people mentioned things about the community or things like that because, you know, other than just answering the questions, people want to talk, you know, especially we're from the South. We like to have conversations, and so it was a really good time. But a lot of people mentioned, you know, oh yeah, you know, I've been here for a little while, love the community, you know, that kind of thing. And so even the people who it wasn't their number one issue, it was a big thing that they seemed to care about.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting. I've been here 5 years now, and I can drive down a street and not recognize it at all. That's not always a bad thing, but you'll have a lot of older ranch-style homes that are replaced by the infamous tall and skinnies. And certainly, you know, the way to decrease property or to decrease housing costs is to build more houses. You know, increase supply to meet demand. But I could see why some people would be concerned that the feel of the neighborhood's kind of going away, and just the Nashville they've known is changing. And you know, growth overall is good, but I think people are just cautious that growth is done well and done sustainably. And so definitely we could tell that Nashvillians were concerned about that.
Definitely.
Moving on to the next one, people were pretty concerned with the budget, with spending, and ensuring that the government was held accountable. And interestingly enough, I think we had some people on both sides that were interested in that. You know, that may generally kind of lean conservative, but we can certainly look at the results. I'm sure that kind of shows some bipartisanness there. But a lot of people, some were outright fed up with it. You know, they said, you know, we're spending money on all these things that we have no business spending money on. We don't know who's in the government. I know one gentleman, he had a lot of trouble, and a lot of people were texting me trying to get answers on who. He had trouble figuring out what is his council member, what are their issues, what do they support. And you know, one gentleman, he couldn't figure out who the council members at large were. Apparently only one of them had a website. I don't know if that's correct or not. That's just what this gentleman was saying. And so they may want to just, you know, where can they go to find information about who their council members are? The Metro website does a pretty good job of showing that, but I think that people are concerned with ensuring we have a good budget. I'm pretty sure we're in the red right now. And they're concerned with wasteful spending and want to ensure that the government is working for them.
Yeah.
Did you have any specific encounters talking about government accountability?
Yeah, I actually had some people who were mentioning, especially in terms of their council members, that they really appreciated where I was at. Their district councilman was actually there. So
cool.
The current incumbent was actually at that polling location. And, you know, talking to voters and trying to meet with them. And so I had a couple different people who, you know, they said that they really liked him because he was there and because they felt that they knew him and that he was responsible. And the word responsible was used not just with the mayoral race, but with a lot of other things as well. Even, you know, in terms of growth and spending and everything was coming back to, you know, we want to make sure that it's done right. And so I heard that from people who identified as liberal, people who identified as conservative. And I heard it from one guy who said he had moved to Nashville from Chicago. And he said, you know, I really want to make sure that Nashville doesn't go the way that my home city did recently. So he really, really moved to Nashville in order to avoid poor spending and poor government accountability. And so he really wanted to make that happen for Nashville.
Gotcha. So yeah, so I think, you know, as Nashvillians, we live here. We're gonna, you know, raise kids here, and so we're all stakeholders in the city. And so it's interesting that education, ensuring the future is squared away, the growth of Nashville, ensuring the growth is sustainable. It's neat to see that those issues are bipartisan, and that Nashvillians in general are you know, working on thinking as a stakeholder of the city, and not wanting to you know, come in, use it up, and get out of here. You know, they're really concerned about the well-being of everybody. So really proud of Nashville and not surprised really, but just proud of Nashville for keeping everybody in mind like that. We will be back with a couple other takeaways, and quick plug, I want to thank all of our Beacon supporters. Your investments in our work allow us to do this show, as well as hold the city government and state government accountable and fight for Tennesseans who otherwise would not have a voice. So thank you very much for supporting us. And now back to Mark and Taylor.
That's great, y'all.
Sorry.
Thanks, guys, for letting us let me go get a refill of tea. Then Mark get a
I
cup of
got
coffee.
coffee and water. I got both. I'm gonna spill it on my computer, I'm sure.
The amount of coffee that Mark has in a day
God.
is startling.
And I want to kind of point on something that Joe said. Also, excellent job, guys.
Thank y'all so much.
But he's right. I mean, like all this stuff, I mean, our salaries, the ability to do this, to have people go out and go, it's all because of our supporters, right?
It is.
And we take money from individual donors. This sounds like a PBS raise-a-thon or whatever now.
But it's true.
Yeah, but absolutely. Like, we don't take money. I mean, we get no, despite what a lot of people say, we don't get money from these corporations. We don't get money so it's individual Tennesseans. That's where we raise our money. So we really appreciate you giving money, and hopefully you're enjoying this.
Yes, absolutely. So we're looking at a lot of different places, and we News Channel 5 has got a lot of results in.
Okay, so they actually have updated results.
Really, just
Wow. Here's the fact is,
really shocked.
despite what people like Jeff Woods thinks, our exit polling was really, really accurate
Spot
so
on,
far.
team.
So Cooper, 36%.
yeah, Joe. If you want to come write this up,
Briley,
here.
26%. And what is how many? 32% of precincts reporting. I don't know how that includes.
Wait, where's that? Oh yeah, 32% reporting. Holy.
Carol Swain at 21, so she's in it. I mean, look, this is John Cooper and either David Briley or Carol Swain. That's what it's coming down to.
Holy cow.
It doesn't look, now again, we don't know what districts are coming in yet.
We don't know.
So John Ray Clemens, again, he has a legislative district here, and if that's not in yet, he could win big there. And he's
could.
at about 15%. I literally don't know any of the other people on that.
I don't either. Yeah, never heard any of these names. in my
But
life.
as Moore's coming in and Cooper is keeping his lead, it's about 10 points, and wow.
He's steady, y'all.
This would be quite an upset, and not exactly, but very close to what our exit polling has showed.
Absolutely.
So I do want to kind of make a note on one of the things that Joe talked about when he did that. Was Joe was talking about the neighborhoods and the fabrics of the neighborhoods, which that is the reason I think he's right. A lot of people really believe in the fabric of the neighborhoods, whatever that means to them.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether that means downtown development, whether
Yeah.
that means your neighborhood's not getting the attention that downtown is. And that was the consistent message of John Cooper.
Yes.
And it resonates. It resonates with everyone. It resonates with conservatives. It resonates with liberals who feel like they've been left behind. It resonates with anybody who doesn't live in, we're right on 4th and Church right here. It resonates with anybody who doesn't live within a
Right
mile
here.
radius of this.
Right here.
Which is most people.
Which is every single person in our office. I mean, everyone that I know. I don't know a single person who lives downtown.
I know one.
Right. And so that was something that Mark and I wanted to talk about, just to give people a picture of what we've got going on here, is just how people position themselves as candidates.
That's right.
John Cooper, as we see him pulling ahead in a big way.
In a big way. It really is a big way now.
With 32% of precincts reporting, we're on News Channel 5 right now. They're doing an amazing job getting these results in. We can't see precincts on the Nashville Election Commission website, but we're watching News Channel 5 right now, and as they're getting all of these numbers in, with John Cooper at 36%, it's just going to show that if you position yourself as the candidate that cares about where the families live, where people live, it's going to pay off.
And its thing is, each race is different. He kind of got to the heart of Nashville's race. He got the idea is that people are tired of all the money going to downtown development and not caring about the neighborhoods.
Which is, I think, what we're all tired of. I mean, that's the heart of our corporate welfare. This is the heart of a lot of the things that we talk about. I don't know if you've been following Beacon for a long time, but if you have, you've seen that we have been taking legal action on behalf of people who live in the communities. Right now, we're talking about sidewalks and how the Nashville City Council has voted for individual citizens to pay for sidewalks. And when you're talking about a candidate that's making a plea to those people, that's how Cooper's positioned himself. I think that our team is signaling for us. Did we have something come up?
You can talk.
47% reporting now.
Wow.
47. Yep, News Channel 5 is now saying, in the 30 seconds that I was talking, News Channel 5 has up their count.
I got 43.
I've got 47% reporting on News Channel 5.
And it looks like Cooper's having a handily 10% lead.
where he was.
And more important is Carol Swain's cut David Briley's lead to less than 4 percentage points there. So depending on what areas are out there, Carol Swain could very easily upend Mayor Briley.
I just want to say again that one of the numbers that we heard earlier tonight was that a sitting mayor has never lost a re-election bid in the history of Nashville, Davidson County Metro government.
A sitting mayor might not even get in a runoff at this time.
if their team has not pulled out some kind of miraculous get out the vote thing, and the remainder, this 53% of precincts that have yet to come in, they got to do something.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Base, you take a look here. If you go down to Channel 5 on the district council page, they say what percentage of that district's reporting. Can you kind of match that with and kind of see where the voting precincts are to see what votes are left out there? Because I think that's really what we're going to be concerned about at this point. And it very much appears that John Cooper will be in a runoff for the mayor of Nashville. Who he will be against, we don't know right now.
You know, I wrote that down. I wrote down this quote at 7:28 that Mark said it would be Cooper 1, Briley 2. And the last...
Well, I said that like 2 weeks ago, too.
Well, you did. But you said it 20 minutes ago, before we were really getting any results. After just the early voting was in.
And the exit polling.
And the exit polling, after only these things were in. I'll tell y'all what, after our first day of exit polling, Mark starts beating the drum on Cooper's coming in first, Briley's coming in second, if at all. And he kept saying, we're underestimating Carol Swain, we're underestimating Carol Swain. And he kept saying it over and over. Y'all, I hate to say it more than anything, because Mark is like my brother, and I don't like it when he's right. But y'all, Mark might be right.
Well, and again, there is still time left, but
there is time.
I mean, if we're being honest about what these polls show, there's no way that a runoff does not involve John Cooper. Even if somehow Briley comes in and gets more votes than him. And I want to look back though. Let's talk about this.
Which one do you want to go back to?
Well, no, okay. Let's talk about. I'm going to go back to this thing. It's not on that.
Okay.
Let's talk about this Tennessee Star poll.
Okay.
From before. The point was that in a runoff, Cooper kills Briley.
Yes.
And that's assuming Briley wins the actual normal election.
Right.
I think Briley has got to feel like he has to feel like he is in terrible shape.
He's trailing Cooper by 10 percentage points.
And if he makes, and guess what? Carol Swain's 20% of votes are not going to David Briley.
No.
Now, I will say that Clemens' 15%, a lot of that will probably go to Briley if that were to be the case.
At the point, if this were to stop right now, Carol Swain's votes would go to Cooper, who's already...
Yeah, if you add this up, you're talking about 57% of the vote right there between Cooper and Swain.
Oh, I just got a message to update the board.
Okay, do we have more results in?
Oh, yeah. Joe, this 47%, you want to update this for us?
Wow.
Man.
This is something else. But like what I've gone back to is that
yeah, keep going.
Cooper is going to be a big favorite in a runoff with Briley.
I know.
Because of these outstanding votes. And I got news for you. John Ray Clemens, some of his people are going to go to Cooper. It's not going to be necessarily they're going to Briley. And I would... It's
not a given. It's never... That's why we play the game.
Exactly. And I would... I mean, there might be a couple that kind of go off, but I would imagine most of Swain's voters would go to Briley. But again, maybe we're going to be talking about where...
No, you would imagine Swain's voters go to Cooper.
I'm sorry. But then again, maybe we're going to be talking about where Briley's voters go.
I
mean, who knows? Like,
I know.
We are here for probably a long night at this point. I mean, we're 47% reporting, and we have kind of Bays looking at some of the districts right now to see what votes are.
Let's keep hypothesizing. Let's say that Swain pulls ahead. So the results that we're looking at right now, David Briley has got a less than 3,000 vote lead on Swain. Less than 3,000 vote lead on Carol Swain at this point. Let's say she pulls ahead of Briley, and it's a Cooper-Swain runoff. What happens?
I don't want to be it would be a massacre. Because literally, I think if you're talking about that, Briley and Clemens, 80% of their votes go to Cooper. I mean, it would probably be whatever Swain has now, plus about 5%, and then the rest, so probably about a 75-25 thing.
Wow.
Swain would have, and if Swain were to win, she would feel a lot better going against Briley or Clemens than at Cooper, because again, that's the closest to her. And then
you're right.
Cooper has made himself the moderate. Swain has kind of been the pro-Trump, pro-all that stuff candidate.
Right.
Where anybody on the left's going to be like, well, I'd rather have a moderate than a Trump conservative.
Right.
But wow, this is something else. I don't think, I mean, as somebody who thought Cooper was going to win, I did not expect it to be like this even.
Well, imagine me. I didn't think he stood a chance of pulling ahead of the front. I mean, I will say, I really thought that it would be Briley 1, Cooper 2, and then the Swain voters would go to Cooper. Going into this, that's what I thought.
50. Okay, so there's 13 districts reporting under 50%. Do you know any of those districts in terms of their what some of their polling places are or their precincts.
Are they in the Google sheet yet? We don't have
Does it have like 17? Do they have the precinct number like 17 or 16 or something?
So it has the district number, and I can go in.
What are the district? Yeah, district number's fine. Give me a couple district
I've
numbers.
got District 2 at 33%.
Okay, so let's see. We're going to go through the districts reporting. District 2, so District 2 were actually, almost all of District 2 were big others in the last election. So that was, those were Briley got about 43% and Swain got about 5%. So we had about 50% other. So we talked about those other strong candidates from last time.
Yes.
So again, this is not Briley territory.
No.
This is probably Cooper territory for the most part. And maybe John Ray Clemens.
Maybe Clemens
and
territory.
I don't know exactly which districts go over or which precincts go over John Ray Clemens' territory, but
I don't either.
That's not good news for Briley. We're looking at last time. Briley is in major trouble in District 2. What other ones do we have, Baze?
So I've got District 8 at 40%.
District 8 at 40%. There's a couple there.
I'll tell you where those are if you want.
Yeah, so I'm looking at 8 here. Again, not huge Briley territories. They're about 53, 58%. But again, and not big Swain, a lot of others. That's about a quarter other when they only got about 15% combined.
This
Again,
is
Cooper
wild.
territory.
Yes.
What else we got?
I've got District 9 at 25%.
Okay, so 9 is a big one. There's three precincts there. Not huge precincts, but other territory.
Other territory.
Now, who? I don't remember. We had some of the names. Who were the people who ran last time in that? We had Ralph Bristol. This is probably not his territory.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the other people. Maybe you have Stephanie. It's been so long ago. But
I didn't live
this
here.
is really, really great news for Cooper. Cooper is going to win this outright. I am predicting it now.
Without
Cooper,
a runoff?
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. But he will have the highest number.
Got to make sure that
He
our
will have the high. He will
terminology is
beat
correct.
Briley.
So in the 2018
Harold
special
Love and Erica
election,
Gilmore.
yeah, you had David Briley, Carol Swain, Erica Gilmore, Harold Love, Ralph Bristol,
and Jeff Carr. He was the big guy with us on transit, very against the transit plan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was great.
That's amazing.
But Harold Love and Erica Gilmore are probably most of that region, which again, I don't know, but I would guess most of those people go to Cooper or maybe Clemens. I don't want Clemens will get some of these votes because again, these are probably more liberal districts, and Clemens is the biggest liberal out there right now of these 4. So this is really interesting. But Briley has no relief here. With that being said, though, either does Swain. Swain. These are not Swain territories where she even hit 20%. So she's not going to improve her standing with this.
No.
So maybe it actually is good for Briley because he might actually separate himself from Swain a little bit. What else do we have?
We've got District 23 at 17%.
Okay, so 23 is a big one.
23 is a big one. I'm about to pull up the same
Okay,
sheet
so
that you're
there's
on, Mark, so I can
23,
see
and there's a
this.
lot of votes in 23. Okay, so 23 is more of a Briley category here. You're talking about he hit about 60% at most of the 23s, and there's a lot of votes there. So that is good news for Briley because there's big numbers at these places. So Briley is going to pick up some votes in the 23rd. What else?
22 is only at 20%.
22. Not a ton of votes there. So 22 is going to be Swain territory.
Whoa.
22 is places where Carol Swain polled over 30% at most of them. So,
Okay.
so Swain will pick up some votes in this 22 region. There's a lot of votes here too.
And that
Wow.
could explain where she's at right now.
Wow, that's interesting. Is there any other ones that were
Yeah, we've got 20 at 25%.
20? Okay, not many in 20. Big Briley territory though, 59,
All right,
59, 70.
pause for just 1 second. We're up to 61% of precincts reporting. John Cooper still in the lead at 35.5% with 27,000 votes. David Briley at 25.5%, a full 10 percentage points less with 20,000 votes. We got Carol Swain at 21.4%, only 4% percentage points under David Briley with 16,000 votes, only 4,000 votes less than sitting Mayor Briley. John Ray Clemens with 15.6% of the vote at 12,284 votes. This is holding very steady at Cooper 1, Briley 2, Swain giving Briley a run for his money, staying close behind.
Yeah, and Swain's going to have to pick up some votes here. It looks like Briley extended his lead by about 500 or 600 votes from the last time, but Swain is going to have to pick up. She's going to have to hope that we talked about this 22nd district is where she can do it, so she's going to need to pick up some votes quick here. And again, Clemens better hope that he gets some territory. Because, again, 15-16% is a very, very respectable performance. But if he's going to make a run, he's got to make it really soon. We're at, again, 61% reporting. But let's talk about what 61% reporting means, because most people don't understand
Yeah,
this.
unpack
It's not
that.
61% of people. It is 61% of precincts.
Of precincts.
And there's a lot of precincts
that have
are
a lot of people.
that have a lot of people that are not reporting or reporting 20% or 25%. So just because it says
And let me say this really quick. Stephanie texted me while we were on our break. Stephanie's at home watching News Channel 5 right now, saying that there were still people at 7, what time did we take our break? About 7:40. There were still
That's about
people
right.
who were waiting in line to vote. How this works is if you were waiting in line to vote when the polling place closed, you can still vote. So you still have, as long as you were in line when the polling place closed, they will not close it and count the votes until you have voted. So there are still people voting. There could be still people voting. I'm not sure what the status is right now of those lines, but there are still precincts that have not closed or just closed
probably
just a few
closing
minutes
now,
ago.
yeah. Yep, so that's exactly right, and we're gonna kind of keep an eye on that. There's just no way with the precincts reporting that, again, let's reiterate it, John Cooper will come in number 1. He will be the first place finisher, and I'm calling that. I don't care what the rules are.
So
or whatever.
how did your house bet go? You get to keep your house.
Well, we'll see. I said if there's a runoff, I lose my house. So Cooper surges ahead. It's hard to believe with 4 candidates that he'll get that. Because again, you have to remember he's at 36% now.
Right.
So he'll have to pick up about 70% the rest of the way to avoid the runoff. But Cooper will finish first and be a heavy favorite to be the next mayor of Nashville.
Right. I mean, let's do some math here. If we stopped it right now,
I think you said you couldn't do math.
I can't. I said let's do some math, meaning I need you to do some math.
Okay.
So let's think about some math here. If you've got Cooper at 35, Briley at 25, Swain at 21, and Clemens at 15.
Yeah.
So let's just say on the ideological spectrum, you've got Cooper at his 35, and you just and you say if we stopped it right now, you add in Swain's 21%, and then you've got Briley's 25.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't even stand a chance. And you add in Clemens' 15.
Yeah.
Doesn't even.
It's just hard to imagine how John Cooper does not win a runoff. Again, if he retains a 35, 36% base.
And then he pulls.
All you have to do is pick up 14%.
Swain's voters.
Yeah, if he picks up, seriously, if he picks up only 60% of Swain's voters and 0 of the other ones, he still wins.
Wow.
It's hard to imagine. I will note that there's been a slight update, and Swain has cut the lead and Briley down to under 4,000, she cut it down to about 700 votes, so she's down to about 3,000 votes now.
Got your results are populating quicker than mine
she's down to about 3,400, I think is what that is. So we're 62% reporting.
This is wild, you guys.
Yeah, this is fun. So let's talk. I do want to talk about the campaign strategies and what this means.
This is the fun stuff.
What this means for Nashville.
Yes.
So I will say I think that Nashville kind of gets this rap as this super liberal, kind of very left-wing city. And it's really not accurate for what we are. I mean, yes, we have some left-wing politicians. A lot of our city council is very left-wing.
Right.
But if you look at past results, we have to remember that Megan Barry, who was the darling of the left, maybe a very liberal person who it seems like won by a lot, only beat David Fox, who was basically a libertarian, kind of a right-leaning guy, by 10 points in general, 55-45.
Right.
We have to remember that our mayors, Carl Dean, Phil Bredesen, they are moderate Democrats. So I think this idea that Nashville wants a very liberal mayor is probably not accurate. And I think that you see Briley, who was too far left of center, and then not far left enough for some of the people, and he kind of picked the worst lane to run in.
Well, let's talk about this. We hear a lot about people are coming to Nashville. You got people leaving Chicago, people coming to Nashville to escape leftist policies, right? Leaving Chicago, they want to come to Nashville. They want to get away from poor fiscal responsibility or lack of fiscal responsibility. They come here and we're saying they're gonna warp our politics one way or the other, and they're coming here, and I'm gonna let you have this in 1 second, but they're coming here and they're actually influencing our policies maybe to a more conservative, to a more libertarian angle.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. This election, I mean, like they talked about, there's probably a lot of new voters going on.
This is a litmus test for where Nashville is leaning.
And again, people who are liberal voted for Cooper, people who are moderate voted for Cooper. But we have an update, and Carol Swain
look at Mark's computer. Mine's not popular.
Carol Swain is cutting this down to under 3,000. It looks like now. So we're at 67% reporting. Cooper has cut this 10-point lead.
I don't know if y'all can believe what's happening. I can't believe what's happening.
And we're trying to, but yes, I mean you could
Rounding up and down, by the way, guys.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's great.
So this is very unbelievable. But yeah, I mean I think that you have a good point about who's voting and this idea that And I think Memphis is the same idea. I think when you think about Memphis, you think about, well, there's a lot of Democrats and there's a lot of people. That doesn't necessarily mean liberal. And I
People aren't coming to Nashville because they feel like this is all that stuff that I said about Chicago before. This is what it comes down to. People are not coming to Nashville because they feel like it is a safe haven for their liberal policies. People are coming to Nashville because they feel like it's a safe haven from fiscal irresponsibility from other areas of the country. Do you agree or not?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. So we're in agreement on one thing, and I think that it's starting to show in these election results as we continue to get them back. Do you have any other updates? Because these are.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting close and
rolling in now. We're at over 51. We're at over 50% reporting. Over half of the precincts in Nashville. Again, it's not over half the people. It's just over half the precincts. As we know, larger precincts take longer to count, take longer to calculate. But 61% of people reporting.
And we're not. Again, we are not a news organization, so we're not really calling races. But I think common sense tells us right now that it will be a runoff election on what do we get?
September 12th.
September 12th. We're going to have a runoff here in Nashville. It is going to be John Cooper, and it's probably going to be David Riley, unless Swain makes a late push.
Unless Swain drives it over the finish line.
And again, and I'm not sure. Can we look up what? Yeah, we have a whole researching John Ray Clemens district. I'm interested to see what they are and if any of them are left. Because again, that's a place where he could possibly win big. Is there an AP call?
No.
Okay, I just saw the AP up there.
We're getting close, and so we're going to
Yeah.
look and see. And once AP calls it, we will go with
Yeah,
with their call.
or Channel 5 or 17 or whatever.
And they'll start calling it soon. Let's look up Clemens District really quick.
Yeah, I'd just be interested to know. Okay, yeah. And here's the other thing. We're thinking about this election, but let's think past this election and what this means. Because John Ray Clemens is a young guy. I don't know how. Does it actually have his age on there? Probably not.
No. Yes, it does. What's 1977?
1977. So he's 10 years older than me. So he is 41 years old.
Everyone's laughing at me.
So he is a young guy.
He has got a political future ahead.
And I think that him getting this 15, 16, 17%
gives him
in this
name
race,
recognition.
and he already had name recognition, and he really has gone as this kind of guy to the left. He almost kind of has that Mayor Pete, Beto O'Rourke type thing to him.
He really does.
He's a good speaker. He's charming. Obviously, we can talk. His policies are not were discussed, but I think that this is probably just the start for him.
Yeah, so State House District 55.
It's hard to tell which
it's a lot
precinct.
of, you've got a lot of West Nashville. Covers a little bit south of the Wedgwood Houston area, starting at Wedgwood Houston and down a little bit, Edge Hill going toward the west, which I realize is backwards to you guys, and up towards Centennial, so up to where I live, close to the Nations, that whole territory, and west of that. So a lot of West Nashville. Do you know what precinct area that is? Look at the Belmead kind of area, maybe.
There's not. It's not really sort of.
List right now.
Okay, give them the list.
Our
Perfect.
guys, I'm telling y'all, our guys are on it.
Well, Belmead, they do have precinct 23, which has a lot of outstanding votes. Westmead, Belmead, and that is, you said that's his district. So, I mean, who knows? Clemens could still be in this race.
He could. I mean, Sylvan Park, kind of this whole area. Tennessee Tech, West End, Sylvan Park, kind of out there toward West Nashville and the Nations.
So it looks like we're going to have 17, part of 17, and then 18, 20, 23, 24.
How much is outstanding in those places? So 17, 18, I mean, are we...
So 20, we've got only 25%.
Okay, so John
Wow.
Ray Clemens could pick up some big
So he
votes
could really
there.
pick some up.
23, we've got 17%.
Wow.
With 74%
Oh,
of
boy.
precincts reporting to News Channel 5, Joe, we need you to do some updating. It's not a big update. We're at Cooper is at 35.1, so dropped 0.4 points there.
And that's one where a few small precincts came in, because you tell the numbers have not changed much.
The numbers haven't changed, but you've got Cooper leading Briley almost 9,000 votes more than Briley at this point, which in an election where you only had 20% of voter turnout, 9,000 votes is a pretty substantial number. I mean, it's 10 percentage points at this point. Joe, I'll read them off to you. 35.1 for Cooper, 25.1 for Briley. Okay, good. You got it. 21.4 for Swain.
Cool.
I can only see you in the recording. And 15.7 for Clemens.
Cool.
keep it there if.
Yeah.
And what is, I mean, so here's another point. What does this say about the campaign that David Briley's run? The guy is the city mayor. I think it was his grandfather or his grandmother. There's somebody who was the mayor before. We have Briley Parkway.
Right.
What does this say about his campaign that he was so well known and is just getting beat down right now by John Cooper?
I know.
Does it talk about his personality? Does it talk about his politics?
What
or
is this a referendum on?
It's on him, that's for sure. In what way, though?
Specifically, exactly. Is it, I mean, so this is something that Carol Swain has been bringing up a lot, calling Nashville politics the good old boys club.
Yeah.
I mean, she is the only woman in the top 4 here of the top contenders, and she keeps calling this the good old boys club. So do you think that Briley has created a culture of that? Do you think that people don't like the corporate welfare? Do you think that people associate him with the threat of property tax increase even though he didn't support it?
I think all those are probably small parts. I think the biggest issue for him is that he mismanaged the city finances. When you look at that, 24% of people who said that was their biggest issue, that has shown. I mean, that is showing right now in these results.
That's real. I mean, what's our budget at right now in Nashville?
I don't know, but I mean,
it's not pretty.
We can't meet it. And I think that with our booming city, that people do not think he has done a good job of managing it. And doing
Agreed.
That. So
okay,
looks like
our team's pointing at the computer.
Yeah, every time we're doing it. I still have 67. Do you have a different number?
74.
I've got 74 now.
Okay, well, your number's better.
Still about the same. Yeah, 35.1.
Again, small districts.
Small districts coming in. Percentage points are the same. I'm going to get on.
But yeah, so I do want to go back to this thing. I just think that he's run a lackluster campaign. I'm not sure that he's that likable, to be honest. And I feel like he's pushed these policies. And let's talk about this. What about the transit plan?
I know.
We talked about that. He kind of got away with it last time because it was a short election.
I know.
It was a turnaround. They had a name. They wanted somebody they're comfortable with. And most people liked Megan Barry behind this whole thing. It's like, oh, it's a continuation of her, so we'll vote for him. But this transit thing, maybe 2 years later, has come back to bite him.
No, I
because
completely
people voted
agree.
overwhelmingly against this transit referendum, and he was the face of it.
And talk about something that is fiscally irresponsible was the transit plan.
Mostly dumb, but yeah.
Right. Well, there's Mark, ladies and gentlemen. Fiscally irresponsible was transit plan. And again, I'm just going to go back to this slide because this, I think, is very telling for where we are right now. What is the most important issue to how you voted today? Fiscal responsibility and taxes. And it's going to show that our exit polling was right on the money. The number one issue, fiscal responsibility and taxes, and the candidate that is coming in first place right now at 35% is the one who has branded himself as a fiscal hawk. I really think we keep refreshing these results because we want to be able to give y'all the most up to the minute results that we can. But I think that this is the most interesting thing that has happened, especially for me, not expecting this to come out. Mark, give us some more of your you got a lot of notes there, and I'm expected to turn out 110,000 people.
Yeah, and I mean, where are we at? That's a great question. They said it's about 110. Our total number right now is about, and there's, what are we at?
We're at 51. What's 51 plus
69, 82. So we're about 8. So we only have, if that is right, we have about 27,000 votes outstanding.
Okay.
Which again, 27,000 votes, there's still a lot there. It does look like at this point, regardless of where we're at, it doesn't seem like John Ray Clemens is going to be able to climb that mountain. I think he's too many votes behind. And the other thing to remember, too, with Briley, I think this is interesting because we haven't talked about this, but we talked about, John Ray Clemens has this district, he'll be great. Mm-hmm. Swain does really well in these districts up here. Briley doesn't have a district that he's going to do well in. He'll do okay across the whole city. There probably won't be any districts that he'll do terrible on, but he doesn't have a district to make up these votes.
I didn't think about that.
Even if it's 50%, like there's not a district he's from that he represents. He was the vice.
Especially if the city is calling a referendum on him, as they seem to be. It's like he's needing to pull votes from everywhere, and he's not.
Yeah, because even if you look at the place that he won by the most last year, he won like 60-6 over Swain, and then the other people got like 35. So he's losing a lot of those votes to Cooper. There is just no way he can come back here. He just doesn't have a place to do it. And the thing is, if he gets in the general election, he has got to he's got to have a different strategy.
All
I don't
right.
know what it is.
You talk about positioning. We've got a YouTube comment here, and this is straight up Mark's alley. I'm not surprised with Cooper's numbers. Every other commercial is an ad for him. The money he spent seems to be paying off. Again, he has positioned himself. He positioned himself as the right-leaning, center-right candidate for a very long time, and then right here at the very end, he flipped into that to try to get those undecided voters by labeling as progressive, and he's sailing through to the lead right now.
And look, I mean, he also
Sailing. It was probably a lot of hard work,
Yeah,
but
of course.
you know what I'm saying.
And he also is. I don't know the amount of money he's given his campaign, but it's millions. I mean, he just gives up a $900,000 thing. So I mean, he is wealthy personally, and he has spent that money. And again, he spent it wisely. But like
this was a good management of campaign.
That's right. And the fact that my girlfriend doesn't pay attention to politics at all, sees a John Cooper commercial on her Hulu pre-roll, and people like that, he has gotten to people our age.
People who are watching Hulu. I don't have cable, and I'm one of those people.
And Stephanie said she got one mailer. Who was it from? It was from John Cooper. So, I mean, he has hit the right people. He's identified this really good mix where he can be kind of anti-Trump, but still center-right in some ways, and then center-left enough that he can get Democrats or liberals to vote for him. I mean, he has just positioned himself in this great way. And I expect...
Man, it's showing.
This is what's going to happen in a general. I expect that David Briley is going to label him a right-wing, conservative Donald Trump supporter. I think that's the only way he could possibly do anything to win this election, because he's going to have to.
I just don't think you're going to flip people. I really do. I'm a firm believer that people stay loyal. People are not going to flip their votes between this primary, as we will call it, between this first election and the runoff. People are not going to stray from Cooper. Briley's best hope is to get everyone from Swain and everyone from Clemens.
And he can't get everyone from Swain. I mean, Swain and him were kind of enemies last time. He cannot get Swain supporters. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
But I mean, if he can label him, I mean, his only campaign path, if I'm his campaign manager, is you label him this right-wing, nut job, Trump supporter type of thing, which I mean, obviously not true, but he will do that, and he's going to have to try to win some of his supporters from the primary. So you know what, I'm a Democrat or I'm a liberal, and he's too conservative for me. Even though I voted for him the first time, I'm going to vote for Briley because I feel more comfortable.
Briley's going to have to position himself more toward the center.
I don't think he's going to.
He's going to have to try.
I think he's going to have to stay left and
really
I think
get Clemens voters.
He's going to get Clemens voters, but he's going to have to get a lot of. He needs to take some of Cooper's voters as maybe being a center left. But I mean, we saw that number. Can we go back to the slide of liberals who self-described liberals voted for?
Yes.
I'm sorry, this was a.
I have a ton of slides.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's go back to this.
Those who identify as liberals is what we're looking at right now.
That's 18% right there that Cooper got that he could take away with that message. I mean, 18% of, again, I mean, that's a decent number. If you get 18% from him of people who voted for him, you take Clemens voters, and you have a race. It might not be enough, but he doesn't really have any other strategy. If he wins tonight by 10 points, I'm like, okay, he might be able to pick up enough. But if he stays in this 25, 26% region, I don't see how it's going to happen.
It's just not going to be pretty. Briley's going to have to catch up to Cooper and make it a 35-30 finish, or it's just not going to.
And one of the things that I would assume.
I don't even know if that's going to be possible at this point.
No, I would assume that something that surprises him might be those results on property taxes. I know they surprised me, but I feel like he kind of went into this thing saying, you know what, I am going to get murdered in this election if I raise property taxes. Even though he probably believes in it deep down, he didn't want to do it because he was worried about this election. And really, when we look at the results, it probably wouldn't have mattered. And if anything,
there's no better time for a voter's wallet than an election year.
Yeah, so. but I mean, if we look at the actual results, it probably wouldn't have mattered to him. Because, I mean, again, more people voted for the property tax. Again, we're against property taxes in any way, and we're against the way Nashville spends money. But if we look at the actual numbers and not our opinions, he might have been better off raising property tax, or at least it didn't hurt him to. I mean, it didn't help him much to not raise it like he thought it might. Because again, those conservative voters, the people who are modern and care about finances, weren't going to vote for him anyway.
Yes. So
81%.
Stephanie, I'm loving. Stephanie's at home right now, and she's sending me a lot of texts, and I love it. And here's her take.
That's Stephanie Witt, by the way. That's
Stephanie Witt, our
VP.
executive vice president, said the runoff is going to be all about getting the people that voted for you to show up again. So it's going to be a get out the vote effort. And like we just said, and I feel like we keep going back to how well Cooper has run this campaign, and I don't want it to seem like we're only talking about that, but he just really has come out and run this campaign really well. And we've been talking about his get out the vote effort this whole time.
Yeah.
And if the other candidates had mimicked Cooper's get out the vote effort, then
Well, they had more money. They might be able to do it. I mean, Cooper had a ton of money.
It's true.
But I mean, probably got money for a lot of the big developers too. So it's not like he had no money.
There's strategy, y'all. There's strategy behind this, and it's going to be. Stephanie has got an amazing point here. The runoff is going to be about retaining the voters that you got today.
But secondarily, let's think about one other thing that we've not talked about. What about getting the voters who didn't vote? The people who stayed home, who might know Briley. Again, if we're talking about 20% turnout, that means there's 80% of registered voters who did not vote. I remember there
come out today.
There was an election. Oh gosh, what was it? It was a Senate election. It was either Mississippi or Alabama or one of those, like 7 or 8 years ago, where McDaniel versus somebody. Oh gosh, who was it? But basically, there was this runoff. And they oh god, I forget what it was, but they got a bunch of people who did not vote the first time to put this. It was a Republican kind of moderate over the top against Chris McDaniel, and they got a couple kind of like liberal Democrats who did not vote in the primary to vote for him, and that put him over the top of 50%. So there is. You have to remember, there's a whole.
Gotta mobilize.
We're looking at these numbers, but there's 80% of people who did not vote.
That's sickening to me.
Well,
as someone who is a big fan of voting, that's sickening to me.
And let's say those people who didn't vote probably are not, again, they're probably not paying attention or super educated.
Right.
So they're probably going to be more likely to vote for.
So how are these campaigns going to mobilize the people who did not vote?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that when you say Briley probably still has the biggest name recognition. So you say, oh, you don't really pay attention. Do you know who David Briley is? Like, yeah. And they would probably maybe vote for him if they did vote. So that is going to be his goal.
If he can figure out how to mobilize those people, then he can catch Cooper. So we're up to 81% reporting. We're still at 35 for Cooper. We are still at 25 for Briley. Let's see. Yep. We are at 21 for Swain. And 15.8 for Clemens. Y'all, as more and more of these numbers are coming in, the number of voters between, at this point, you've got 9,000, almost 9,000, close to 8,000 votes between John Cooper and David Briley. The percentages are staying the same, but the percentages are staying the same. More and more votes are coming in, and each district seems to be consistent with what we've got going on here.
So for what it's worth, the Tennessean is, they're not calling it, but they're saying a likely runoff, and between Cooper and Briley, kind of as we're talking about right now. So it seems like that is the most likely scenario. Nobody's actually calling it yet, and it's always good to talk about that. But
what's it going to take to get these people out on September 12th? Mark, I mean, what's it going to take?
I think money is the number one thing. And let's think about this. These wealthy developers who are getting tons of money from Mayor Briley and the city government, and they're getting kind of, in a lot of ways, yelled at and insulted by Cooper. They are going to go all in for Briley in this runoff. And they're going to say, I mean, they realize that in some ways their livelihoods depend on it. If their livelihoods depend on government money, that they're going to say, you know what, we want a person who's going to give us incentives, to give us money to be in the city. Where Cooper has proven time and again, he will not do that.
I know.
So the money race will be the most interesting thing.
And it will be, do we have any numbers for the money this time?
I think we can figure it out. Do we have do we have numbers of money spent? And we're going to bring Joe back up here in a minute.
Let's look.
Yeah, so early voting is going to start August 23rd for this. So they really have like 3 weeks. That's all they have to do that.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, that is tough to do. But I mean, how much money they have left will be interesting.
Right.
Because if they have money left and how much they spent. So Joe, in about 2 minutes, we're going to do we're going to do your second round, talking about some of the exit polls and what you found while we're kind of waiting for the results.
All right, so let's talk about some money raised. This is an article from the Tennessean, and I'm gonna go straight from it. Nashville's top tier mayoral candidates raised $938,000 in the second quarter of campaign season, spending at $1.43 million. Briley leading the way in overall fundraising with $443,000 collected. April 1st through June 30th, John Cooper significantly bolstered his campaign with $555,000. Again, this article is on the Tennessean, what I'm reading from right now.
I think he gave himself, if I'm not mistaken, an extra $1 million right before the last. So I mean, he probably gave himself about $1.5 million.
Cooper
total.
raised $265,000. Clemens collected $118,000 with an initial $50,000 personal loan, and $111,000 for Carol Swain. Briley had some big name donors and a Phil Bredesen endorsement. How did I not know that?
Well, because endorsements don't matter, and I'm done with this. Endorsements don't mean anything. The Tennessean endorsed Briley. I love the Tennessean, and I really like a lot of the reports of the Tennessean. But guess what? When they endorse things, it doesn't go well. They endorse Briley. They endorse the transit plan. People don't care about endorsements. And nothing against the Tennessean, but they don't care about endorsements. Period. People
Democrats,
really don't care about the city of Nashville loves Bredesen.
If anything,
and it doesn't matter.
An endorsement is like a litmus test. It's like, well, for me at least, it's, well, if this person supports them, then I don't, or well, if this person supports them, then I do, but it doesn't really change anything.
And I'll say the same thing to Republicans. Everyone thinks that, oh, if Trump endorses you, you're good. Endorsements just don't, they mean very little. Maybe in some small race, if there's somebody big
it's
that endorses you.
It's a risky move. It's more likely to be a kiss of death than a positive influence.
Yep, I agree.
think.
So we're going to take another quick break, and we're going to have Joe come out here, and Joe and Bays are going to come. And Joe, what are you going to talk about here in the exit polls? What part?
Some surprises that we have.
Some surprises, other than the fact that Cooper is running away with this thing.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked. We'll be right back, guys.
Okay, we'll be right back, and they're going to come here and talk. And I'm going to stop sweating, hopefully. The coffee was a terrible idea. I'll take this from you.
All right, thanks, sir. All right, guys. Let's get our mics hooked up.
Alrighty.
Cool. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Thank you very much if you voted. You know, staying as an active citizen of Nashville, very important, staying on top of the issues. So I want to say before we get started, so our takeaways are going to be a mix of general takeaways and then a couple like one-off stories we had with individual voters. And so right now we want to talk about some things that were surprising to us throughout the couple hours, I guess 2.5 hours we were conducting exit polling today. So I'll go ahead and lead. I didn't see a strong correlation between party affiliation and the two issues, the property tax increases and the corporate welfare or tax breaks to companies. I was pretty surprised that some conservatives were pro tax increase, and some of those who identified as liberal were pro corporate welfare, and so that was pretty interesting to me. Bays, did you kind of have a similar thought?
Yeah, so Joe and I were in different precincts this morning, and I saw a lot of the same trends. A lot of folks who told us that they identified as conservative said that they were okay with property taxes being increased if the situation was appropriate for it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in general, not just conservatives, kind of gave that caveat. They kind of thought about it and said, well, if I knew what the money was going towards, I'd be okay with it. And likewise, like you said, a lot of the folks who identified as liberals seemed to be okay with corporate welfare. One big thing a lot of people said with that one as well was they would be okay with corporate welfare in situations when the businesses were going to be bringing a lot of jobs to Nashville, if that was something that they could know for sure ahead of time.
I think so. I think everyone wants jobs, everyone wants prosperity, everyone wants to make some money and have some fun, and so that's certainly a pretty common theme. But then wanting to hold them accountable and make sure we're not getting fleeced, I think was important as well. And I think the lack of a strong correlation between party affiliation and the issues, I think that could show kind of the moderateness of Nashville and how people are issues based. Even though that kind of leads to our next thing, even though they're conservatives, a lot of people still voted for Briley or Clemens, even though some people, a few liberals voted for Swain, and Swain's certainly the most conservative candidate in my opinion. And so I think that although someone identifies, with a certain political ideology, there's really no telling who they're going to vote for, and a lot of it may be very issue specific. And some folks may have a personal stake in certain issues. They may be really affected more than others by property taxes, by businesses moving in, even things like education, stuff like that. And so I think a lot of voters maybe were thinking of certain issues and how it pertains to them when they gave their answer, and not sticking to their partisan lines. And I think that's encouraging. Nashville, people care about specific issues. We care about each other, and we want to do what's best, even if it's not what my party tells me to do, which I think is encouraging for sure.
Yeah. Kind of going off of that too. We're going to get to the what the Trump approval and disapproval ratings, how that influenced the voting a little bit later. But for now, I'd just like to say, obviously, Mark and Taylor touched on that a little bit. Trump was pretty unpopular across the board. One trend that I noticed, and I would guess it was probably the same in your precinct, support for Trump and saying that the voters approved of the job he was doing, that seemed to correlate pretty highly with support for Carol Swain.
Yeah.
And I think where you get some conservatives voting for Briley and Clemens, I would guess that a lot of the conservatives who are voting for those candidates are probably in the camp that disapprove of Trump, and likewise probably don't approve of Carol Swain as much. So
yeah, I think that's accurate. And a lot of folks I saw that were conservative that voted for Briley, or mainly for Briley, their biggest issue was bringing businesses into Nashville and economic growth, continuing the growth of Nashville. And so I think they're probably business-minded. Possibly folks affiliated with like the chamber or things like that, and they've seen the work that Briley's doing to bring businesses in. And on our part, whether we agree with the methods of how the businesses are coming in, they still see in the paper that the businesses are coming in and they're business-minded, economic-minded, and so they approve of Briley moving, trying to push that effort.
Yeah, that's true.
One kind of funny surprise that Jason had was one lady said, well, I guess I'm conservative now. The liberals have gone off the deep end. And so that was just kind of funny to see. Anyone who switches sides, that's always interesting. And I don't really think, I'm curious if she was influenced on the national stage. And maybe if that's why, not to get too much into that, but I think, the national stage has taken a big spotlight in the news recently. And I'm curious if maybe the national stuff is what caused her to think that. But that was kind of funny that she had kind of shifted her mindset. And I'm not sure, did you have anybody saying anything like that? I'm not sure if I did, but that may have just been one off.
It doesn't really have to do with party alignment per se, but early this morning, right when we first got there was an older gentleman that was probably in his 80s or 90s, and he stopped and took some time to talk with us. And I got to the last question and asked his party affiliation. He looked me up and down and said, well, I'm not a liberal because I'm not wearing tight hipster pants. So thought that was kind of funny.
I'm actually wearing my first pair of kind of tight hipster pants. I'm off the dad jeans for a little while, not too long. But I'm moving that way. Maybe I'm moving a little moderate. Maybe I'm a little more hip every day.
There you go.
But well, cool. I think Mark and Taylor are about ready.
Yeah, we have some updates
to hop back on. Got some hot takes, new updates coming in. So thanks again for watching, guys. We're going to bring the host back in, and I think we'll be updating the scoreboard here.
We are.
Yeah, we have a concession.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, a concession.
Yeah, so we know who's not going to make it.
Not going to be a huge surprise, though.
Jody Ball.
Joe, if you want to stay in the frame, we can update. So as of probably about 20 minutes ago now, John Ray Clemens has conceded. He called David Briley to tell him congratulations, best of luck.
So he called Briley?
He called Briley, according to Twitter and according to Briley. So Briley's over here. He's got his party, speaking at his party. And so Clemens is out at 16%. Oh gosh.
It's interesting he called Briley and not and kind of conceded there, because I would think he would call, I guess because he's a sitting mayor, but you think he'd call Cooper.
You would think, but I guess, yeah, because he's the sitting mayor, he called him. So we've got Cooper at 35% at this point, Briley at 25%, Swain at 21%, and Clemens out at 16%. Now that Clemens can still get votes.
Yeah, to be clear, conceding doesn't mean that he actually lost. It just means that he doesn't see a path forward.
He doesn't see a path forward, and he's saying, I'm going to bow out gracefully.
I think didn't George W. Bush concede Florida and then unconceded, and then Kerry conceded, and then it was a big fight?
Yeah, things got weird.
Yeah,
things got really weird.
So the one thing that we're keeping an eye on is Carol Swain. I just don't think there's enough votes out there for her to catch up. She's just staying just like that kind of 3,000 votes. It's been that way for about the last 40%. and I just don't think there's enough votes out there for her to catch up. I mean, we're at we said we got about 100,000 to 110, and we're at about 90. We're at about 95,000. So basically,
We got 89% of precincts are reporting.
yeah, for her to have a shot, she's got to take about 70, 60%. I mean, it's probably over. So I think what we're doing is we're looking at a Cooper-Briley runoff
We're going to
election.
wait until the AP calls it. We're going to wait until Channel 5 and all these precincts call it. But
I wish people listen to me. I should be able to call elections. Yeah.
I think that's
we
a
all
really-
agree, right? Do we? If all four of us agree, or all five of us agree, we can
I'm
call
looking
it. Does
down.
everyone agree it's a Cooper-Briley runoff?
everyone in the room agrees.
Oh, God, we have 4 out of 5. Joe's holding out. That appears to be what it's going to be, and we're going to be with you for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes here, but it looks like it's over.
We're gonna hang out with you guys. One thing that I want Mark to go over is we originally weren't gonna release these. Well, we didn't know if we were gonna release these.
We didn't release them originally.
We didn't release our exit polling results originally, as far as like who came in first, who came in second, third, and fourth. But
because exit polls are just notoriously wrong,
right.
and we didn't want to kind of put that out there and have
We didn't want to go there, but I think we're safe to.
Yeah, despite what Jeff Woods thinks, apparently our results are really good.
Right, we have a.
So what we had is, I know that we were a little bit, actually our exit polling is a little bit down on Cooper from what it should have been, but Briley and Cooper we had at about 29% each, which is about spot on for Briley, a little bit low for Cooper. We had Swain around 22, which is just what she's at, and I think we had John Ray Clemens about 19 or 18, which is a little bit higher. He's at about 16 though, but our results were very spot on, and especially in a place where people were projecting Briley to win by 10, 15 points. And we had, we looked twice like, oh, we have Cooper and Briley tied. Is that really right? It seemed, I know, I knew it was right, but a lot of people didn't think so.
It really did catch us off guard that that those were the numbers.
So let's talk.
Stephanie's telling me that Cooper's speaking on Channel 2. Cooper's campaign knocked on over 50,000 doors.
They knocked them on. They knocked them on.
Did they really?
They did.
I had
Not
no idea.
him personally, but
right.
So let's talk about the next stage of this campaign. So we have Cooper and Briley in a runoff. We're assuming that. We're going to assume there's going to be endorsements. Now, let's talk about this. Carol Swain went very hard after John Cooper in the final days of this campaign. She called him out over that ICE attack. That was a big thing she talked about because he said that they shouldn't use resources for that. Will Swain endorse him? I think that's tough.
Mean nothing.
Well, I mean, she's not going to endorse Briley. Does she endorse?
But does she tell her voters
to vote for Cooper? And maybe work
where does she direct her voters?
And that's, again, we talk about endorsements don't always matter because no matter what people think, he's going to get a lot of her voters regardless. But does he take this step? And it sounds like from this call that John Ray Clemens will endorse Briley. It'd be hard to believe that he would call him if he's not going to endorse him.
Right.
So you can assume that. So the question comes down to Dr. Swain. Will she endorse? And we should talk to her. We should see if we can find out. We could be the first
that
one.
That would be really interesting.
We're already breaking news all night, so might as well break more.
We've got here, Stephanie's letting us know what's happening. Cooper speaking on Channel 2. He's just saying that educator and police and fire pay comes first. Infrastructure in your neighborhood comes first. He's really prioritizing the things that people want to hear. Fiscal responsibility as far as where he wants to see your money spent under his administration, where your money would be spent, and it would be on these priorities. He said, quote, a Nashville for everyone is what Cooper's saying. And that's on brand with the campaign
we like the talking points, right?
Right, it's on brand with the campaign that he's running. Obviously I'm not going to listen to what Briley's saying right now. If we can look up on Twitter and see what he's got going on. But the fact that Clemens called him, that's definitely going to lead in the direction of Clemens telling his voters to give their votes to Briley. I'm just.
Yeah, pretty cool though. On the Tennessee, the national election, taxes coming as top issue for voters according to our poll. So they have that really high, and it turned out to be absolutely correct too. You see, the Cooper thing was not a surprise, and the fact that Cooper can get. I want to talk about this in this city that again we're talking about as being liberal. We have these 2 center or right of center candidates.
I know
that
are pulling high.
What do they combine at? Like 55, 57%.
Right.
Those are big numbers. So I think that this idea that that especially the city council has, which there's a lot of liberal members, it is not as liberal as you think it is.
So this is what I want to talk about too. Does that mean? Is this, and this might be opening a can of worms. If it is, you can tell me to stop. But
Stop.
Is this indicative of the entire population or just people who are likely to vote?
I don't know. I don't know the
But
answer
you know
to
what
it.
I mean?
No, of
You know what I
course.
mean? What I'm saying?
I
That
absolutely
is
understand.
Is it that the center right voters are more likely to vote, or is it that the city itself is airs on the side of center right? I mean, of the center right movement.
I think it's a comment. I think that the biggest Mayor Briley did not inspire people to go and vote for him.
No.
That was a big deal. He did
y'all,
not.
we're at 92% reporting at the moment, and he's at 25%.
Yeah.
Okay, a fourth of the votes.
As the sitting mayor,
As the
with
sitting
the most
mayor.
name recognition and all the money from developers you could possibly get and other people.
He's at 25%
But,
of the
and I mean, and I'm not insulting him when I say that. I mean, politics involves
No, I mean,
money,
this is real.
and Cooper gave 1.5 million of his own money. So I mean, these two had the most money. It seems like Cooper probably spent his a little bit more efficiently, but they're going to run off. So let's remember, it's like the playoffs. Everything starts over. Even if Cooper's the 1 seed and Briley's the 8 seed, anybody can win.
Anybody, that's
So
why
the
we play
idea,
the
I mean,
game.
we look at the numbers and it seems like Cooper's a favorite, but weird stuff happens all the time.
This
Let's
is
remember
the
that.
wildest.
I think President Trump can tell us that weird stuff happens all the time.
We were all there.
If we were to talk to the
3 a.m.
primary and that he would say there'd be a President Trump, I would have bet my house at that point that he would not be the Republican nominee, and obviously I was wrong.
I just need to know what the status of your house is right now.
It's safe. It's safe. It's going to be a runoff. Nobody's called it. The Beacon Center is calling a runoff, and it's going to be between David Briley and John Cooper. That's
Official
it.
thing.
I think we're good. Honestly, I don't think there's much else here. I think we have it, and we're going to be seeing a runoff. Let's say our goodbyes before we do this, and I hope we'll be back for the general. I mean, I think it went well tonight. These guys.
What do y'all think? Do y'all feel like we did good?
Absolutely. You want to highlight the older voters, the property taxes?
Oh yeah. What we'll do is why don't we give our final takeaways and then we'll have you two talk about. You want to talk about older voters and property taxes?
That was a big takeaway I noticed, but not a huge.
Okay. So I mean, instead of switching back and forth, tell us what kind of the main thing was, and we'll.
Let me just double check or something.
Yeah, that's fine.
When people said when people were answering the question about do you support a property tax, those who vehemently and immediately said no were older Nashvilleians.
Yeah, so if
Okay.
you can't hear what Joe's saying, because he doesn't have the mic with him right now, what he said was during their exit polling today, when they were asked about property tax increases, those who were passionate in their answer of no, we would never support a property tax, were the older citizens, the older voters, people who you would think might be on a fixed income, Social Security, whatever that might look like. They 100% said no, which is the same thing that we saw. I remember talking to a very elderly couple that had a hard time getting down the stairs to vote for early voting. And they said the same thing. They would absolutely, under no circumstances, there was an expletive used, they would absolutely not support a property tax increase.
That's right.
Ever.
And Joe talked to me too, and I think what you said was that the people kind of on fixed incomes, it makes sense that they can't afford to pay higher taxes on this house they might have had for 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that even though the property tax number was whatever 44 said they would pay, 37 wouldn't, that the 37 who wouldn't, that's a top priority for them, where the 43 or 44 who
Absolutely.
would, it's just maybe 9th or 10th on their list, and there's other bigger priorities. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's great. So, I mean, before we go, we're going to kind of do our takeaways. Why don't you start with just one or two, and then we're going to leave for the night. And
Yeah, my number one takeaway, I think, is it's all about how you position yourself. This is why we always talk about just like Mark said, when you go into playoffs, everything starts over. When you go into football season, everything starts over. This is why we play the game. It's all about how you position yourself. I myself thought that Briley was going to come out on top, Cooper in second. I think that my estimate was about 15 points
The other way, yeah.
the other way. And now we've got this race that's 10 points, Cooper ahead of Briley. And so I think that my main takeaway here is that the Nashville citizens who really care and really want to get out and vote and have their voice heard are those voters that are leaning toward the center right. Whether that is indicative of the entire population, we'll never know until we get more than 20% of people out to vote. But I think that what's going to happen in a runoff is just like Stephanie said, people are going to have to inspire people to vote. What we saw today was that Mayor Briley, with all of his name recognition and all of his resources, fell short of inspiring people to vote. His team, they worked hard. I know every single team in this election worked hard. They were, whether they were outworked, outspent, or out inspired by the Cooper campaign, I do not know. Only time will tell. We'll only be able to know that as we go forward in a runoff. But I think that what this shows is that people really want a leader that they can trust with their tax money and they can trust to be accountable. That's my takeaways.
And I think the one thing that has not been mentioned at all is that John Cooper did not want to run for mayor. He eventually said, no, I'm not going to run. But essentially, without using the language that
And here we
but
are.
Briley basically pissed him off so much that he felt like he had to run. That is basically what it said. Swain got in the election because, and we should remember this as an endorsement, Swain got in the election because she said, oh, well, Cooper's not running, so I feel comfortable running. Cooper gets in anyway. So it might be likely that she does endorse him based on the fact she obviously thinks that he's the closest to her.
That's an interesting point.
But John Cooper ran an excellent campaign. David Briley has done nothing to, like you said, not inspire people, but like he just doesn't have much to his name. Not bad or good. He just doesn't have much to run on. And I think he took John Cooper as a threat entirely too late in this election. I think he realized probably in the last 2 or 3 weeks that he was in trouble, but he didn't attack him. He didn't do anything before that. And that's the reason John Cooper won. And I also want to give a shout out to Carol Swain and John Ray Clemens. They both ran as third and fourth candidates with less money than the top two. They ran very valiant campaigns, and not politics aside, they ran good campaigns. They got their people out, and they both, I think,
Double-digit totals.
They both polled better than I thought. And
Absolutely.
as a note, just real quick before we go, my prediction was John Cooper at 35%. What does that number say right there? Is that 34.9%?
I hate this.
Wow, that's tough.
I am miserable.
That's tough, and I beat Bass in that too because I was a little bit closer, even though we were close.
Okay, Mark not only gets to keep his house, but he wins the internal poll.
Which
blah, blah, blah.
Maybe I win a free Wendy's lunch. I'm not sure.
I'm going to have to treat Mark to lunch, but whatever.
But look,
it's fine.
it
I'll
was-
do better next time.
It was a great night, and we're excited to be involved in this because, like we said, it's not just local policy matters, local elections matter. We don't endorse candidates, but we hear what they say, and we want to hold their feet to the fire when they say that. So
And
this
like
is
we
important
said,
to us.
we plan on over the next few months, over the next year, really digging into what it means for cities, what the elected officials and what they stand for mean for the cities across Tennessee. This is what impacts you. This is the corporate welfare dollars are coming out of your tax dollars. The property taxes are going to affect your home. And so this is really important for you. Let us know what you thought of this. Let us know what you want to see next time. We really want to do this again. We want to be able to keep talking about these issues and keep talking about these local issues. Congratulations to every candidate that has worked so hard to run
the ones
a
we didn't mention
campaign.
tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone has worked hard. Across the board, everyone worked hard. What it all comes down to is who inspired people to vote, I think. And that's
Yep.
what we saw.
And let me thank 4 people. One, our donors. They were awesome. Thank you for.
We wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here without you. And then let's get
made
Baze,
this possible.
Jacob, and Joe. They all did an excellent job. They are over there working hard. They got up at 7 a.m. this morning
They
in
got
order
to
to
the
go
polling
and do exit
places.
polling. They got pizza, and
Yes.
they've helped us all along the way. So we only did 1 day of exit polling, and we got to sit in a nice office all day while they
Air-conditioned
were out
office
there.
while they were out.
They were out there
Yeah.
working. So they are the real MVPs.
They are.
So we thank them, and we thank you for watching. We enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see you again on September 12th.
Yes, vote on September 12th.
We have 2 cameras.